Okay, so I wanted to have some fun tonight covering the conservatives' leadership debate. Uh, but unfortunately, tragedy struck out in Texas uh, with another shooting. Bro, it's been like not even, it wasn't even a week or so, and there's another fucking mass shooting. Like, what is this? Um, so far, the death toll is 21. We'll get into that and maybe possibly some motives and shit, but if it's been released, if there's been a motive or anything, but well, we know right now that there's been 21 confirmed uh to have died, as well as I think there was two in critical condition. So it's yeah, no, it's just fucking sad, man. It's just let's just jump into it, I guess.
Let's return now to our top story in the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And of course, the massacre has left this tight-knit community in shock and disbelief. The country's latest mass shooting allegedly carried out by one of their own. For more, let's go to Texas, where we find Wendy Woolfolk. Wendy, we appreciate this. Look, an almost unimaginable and depraved level of violence, and so many people obviously trying to make sense of all of this. What more have we learned of this just unspeakable tragedy, really?
It's been a somber and stormy night here, Anthony, in South Texas. We can tell you a glimpse of good news, which is that a fourth grade teacher who was shot while protecting her students survived a very intense surgery overnight. Unfortunately, the death toll here, though, could rise because there are still people in the hospital. So we are crossing our fingers that the numbers will stay where they are.
Yeah, it's just fucking crazy that, there are fucking 21 people confirmed dead so far, and more are in critical condition in the hospital. Like, if I'm not mistaken, I think this was the second largest mass shooting that had happened in the States, like in history, or at least in recent history. Like, this is just like fucking nuts, man.
Unfortunately, it's just too soon to know.
So we're trying to piece this together. 19 children, two teachers gunned down in their classrooms. We also understand and have learned that a member of his family was also killed. Can you piece together, with the limited time that we have, a little more?
Oh yeah, so apparently uh the shooter was like posting shit on Facebook and like whatnot, and then like later on, I think it was like yesterday or like today or something, I don't exactly know, but he had went to his, I think it was his grandma's place, uh shot and attacked her, stole her truck, and then went into uh Robb Elementary School and had somehow managed to slip in, barricade himself into uh the classroom and kill pretty much everyone that was in there. And apparently the shooter had died in a shootout with the cops, what I understand so far.
More of the investigation, where we go from here?
Sure, we do know that he acted alone, according to investigators. We know that what happened first was he allegedly shot his grandmother and then somehow wrecked his car right outside the school where I'm standing, and then while the kids were at recess, he started shooting when he went onto the field and then went into the school. What prompted the shooting, we don't know. I think that's what everyone is wondering. The answer to the question why. They do know, according to investigators, that this 18-year-old suspect bought the two guns in this area either on or just after his 18th birthday. Trying to figure out exactly what the circumstances that led up to today. They are also looking at his social media accounts, Anthony, and they say he possibly alluded to what happened here. And they are trying to find, answers to what
Like, I don't understand, like, how these fucking children get a hold of weapons. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, it's fucking crazy. And, like, it ultimately doesn't matter because, like, especially not in Texas, considering that they have, essentially a law that's going into effect, or already is in effect, that, if you, essentially if you live in Texas, you can own a gun without having, like, any form of training as well. Like, how the fuck does that happen? Like, that's nuts.
everyone is asking, which is why. And I don't know that anyone will ever be able to make sense of it. As a parent, I can say you hug your kids even tighter when they go to school every day when you hear things like this. And I think our entire nation just mourns with these poor people, the 21 families who sent their loved ones to school yesterday, and they're not coming back.
Incredibly sad story. We appreciate this update. Wendy Woolfolk joining us from Uvalde, Texas. Thank you.
Like, how the hell does this happen, man? Like, it's so fucking sad and aggravating that this shit happens. Okay, let's watch Brandon addressing the gun or this tragedy. See what Brandon has to say.
Good evening, fellow Americans. I had hoped when I became president I would not have to do this again. Another massacre, Uvalde, Texas, an elementary school. Beautiful, innocent, second, third, fourth graders.
Wait, second to fourth graders? What the fuck, man? That's fucking crazy. Like, no fucking second grader should have to worry about getting shot when they go to school. Like, it's fucking nuts.
And how many scores of little children who witness what happened see their friends die as if they're on a battlefield, for God's sake. They'll live with it the rest of their lives. There's a lot we don't know yet. There's a lot we do know. The parents who will never see their child again, never have them jump in bed and cuddle with them. Parents who will never be the same. To lose a child is like having a piece of your soul ripped away. There's a hollowness in your chest. You feel like you're being sucked into it and never going to be able to get out. Suffocating. It's never quite the same. It's a feeling shared by the siblings and the grandparents and the family members and the community that's left behind. Scripture says, Jill and I have talked about this in different contexts, in other contexts. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed.
Bro, what the fuck is scripture gonna do? Like, it's literally gonna do fucking nothing. Like, you can pray all you want about it, but that's not gonna fucking stop any of this shit. maybe you should actually fucking step up and, fucking enforce, like, at the very least, the the marginal the marginal fucking um amount of things that Americans, like, a vast majority of them actually want, being like fucking universal background checks at the very minimum. Like, it's fucking wild. I don't understand why he just doesn't fucking grow a backbone and actually do it.
Crushed in spirit. So many crushed spirits. So tonight, I ask the nation to pray for them. Give the parents and siblings the strength in the darkness they feel right now. As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done? It's been 3,448 days, 10 years since I stood up at a high school in Connecticut, a grade school in Connecticut, where another gunman massacred 26 people, including 20 first graders.
Wasn't this the like major one that happened in the States that he's referring to? Like, it's fucking nuts, man.
At Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Yeah, the Sandy Hook. There it is.
Since then, there have been over 900 incidents of gunfires reported on school grounds. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Santa Fe High School in Texas. Oxford High School in Michigan. The list goes on, and the list grows when it includes mass shootings at places like movie theaters, houses of worship, as we saw just 10 days ago, at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York.
Like it's crazy that only happened 10 days ago. Like, I can't even fathom that. Like, how the hell does that happen? Jesus.
I am sick and tired of it. We have to act. And don't tell me we can't have an impact on this carnage. I spent my career as a senator and a vice president working to pass common sense gun laws. We can and won't prevent every tragedy, but we know they work and have positive impact. When we passed the assault weapons ban, mass shootings went down. When the law expired, mass shootings tripled. The idea that an 18-year-old kid can walk into a gun store and buy 2 assault weapons is just wrong.
Yeah, no
What
doubt.
in God's name do you need an assault weapon for except to kill someone? Deer aren't running through the forest with Kevlar vests on, for God's sake. It's just sick. And the gun manufacturers have spent 2 decades aggressively marketing assault weapons, which make them the most and largest profit. For God's sake.
Okay, then why don't you do something about it then? Like, it's... From what I understand, when it comes to American gun sales, tragedies like these generally tend, especially under a Democratic leadership, tends to skyrocket gun sales because, people are afraid, right? So they want to try and protect themselves because, it's how that fucking works. But, like, even introducing, like, marginal fucking things that, vast majority of the country wants, regardless if they vote Democrat or Republican, would actually save a lot of fucking lives. Like the system that we have is not good. It can be easily expanded upon. But like, if you do like half of even what we do, gun violence will decline in the States.
We have to have the courage to stand up to the industry. Here's what else I know. Most Americans support common sense laws, common sense gun laws. I just got off a trip from Asia, meeting with Asian leaders. And I learned of this while I was on the aircraft. And what struck me on that 17-hour flight, what struck me was these kinds of mass shootings rarely happen anywhere else in the world. Why? They have mental health problems. They have domestic disputes in other countries. They have people who are lost. But these kinds of mass shootings never happen with the kind of frequency they happen in America. Why? Why are we willing to live with this?
Why? It could be the massive gun culture you have, the lack of training of individuals, whether it be private or public, or even like personal individuals. Lack of gun laws, lack of regulation. A nation based off of white supremacy. That's just one of the many slew of different reasons on why that happens. And like the other places that do have like a good chunk of gun violence, say like Switzerland for example, it's like half of what America has. Like if I'm not mistaken, I think Switzerland is like third in gun violence, and they're like not even half of the US. Like, it's crazy, man. Like our gun violence here is only like, I don't know, maybe 14 people or something like that. Because at least that's what the last mass shooting was. It was 14 people out in, I think, Newfoundland, if I remember correctly.
This carnage? Why do we keep letting this happen? Where in God's name is our backbone? Have the courage to deal with it.
Maybe they took it from you.
It's time to turn this pain into action for every parent, for every citizen in this country. We have to make it clear to every elected official in this country. It's time to act. It's time for those who obstruct or delay or block the common sense gun laws. We need to let you know that we will not forget. We can do so much more. We have to do more.
Then do it.
Our prayer tonight.
Go down to the fucking Disney vault where you keep your backbone. Go get it, shove it back into your bag, and fucking do it, bitch. Like, I'm tired of like hearing all these fucking mass shootings and having a bunch of innocent children fucking die over it. Like, it's fucking sad. It hurts. It hurts to hear whenever this fucking happens.
Those parents lying in bed and trying to figure out, will I be able to sleep again? What do I say to my other children? What happens tomorrow? May God bless the loss of innocent life on this sad day. And may the Lord be near the brokenhearted and save those crushed in spirit, because they're going to need a lot of help, a lot of our prayers. God love you.
Will you go to Texas,
Wait, that's it? That's all he's gonna fucking do?
sir? Sir, will you go to Texas?
At the very least, he should fucking go to Texas. Do some shit there. But I mean, I guess to be fair, he's like fucking shit, so like a gust of wind will fucking blow him over or something. I don't know. That was a lot less I was expecting from Brandon. Crazy.
But looking at these scenes, it evokes a terrible familiarity for my next guest, someone you met years ago under similarly horrific circumstances.
Okay, so we're gonna be watching, I think it's the Sandy Hook families that live in Uvalde. Seeing what they say about.
His daughter, Anna Marquez Green, was among those 20 children killed, excuse me, at Sandy Hook back in 2012. There was a connection for us at the time because they lived in Winnipeg for 3 years before they moved to Newtown.
Winnipeg, uh-oh, that's a little bit of a red flag there because, you know, fucking Winnipeg is dog awful. Like, it does have its good moments, but it's also pretty shit too.
And his daughter was killed. And we met Jimmy Green at that time. He's graciously agreed to come back and speak to me this morning. Jimmy, good to have you under the most horrific of circumstances, but I'm happy to have you with us today.
Thank you, Heather.
I'm interested, Jimmy, first of all, in your reaction as you're hearing these news reports yesterday as they're evolving. Another school shooting and the numbers of people killed just keeps rising. What were you experiencing yesterday?
Just horrified shock and disbelief, overwhelming sadness, because I know what these families are going to be dealing with over the next days and weeks and months and years. And it is really asking a lot of these families just to make it, and knowing that without a really supportive community effort to provide comfort, a listening ear, meals, whatever the family might need over these next days and weeks and months. Without that support, I don't know how we would have made it. You mentioned that we did live in Winnipeg for 3 years after moving back, before moving back to Connecticut. We had lived in Connecticut for 4 months when our daughter was murdered.
Jesus
Our
Christ.
community from Winnipeg showed up.
He lived in Connecticut for 4 fucking months and his daughter was fucking murdered. Like, Jesus. But, like, at least Winnipeggers, like, the Winnipeg community that he had, you know, fucking was there to support him, so it's good.
Our pastor, many of our friends, many of my son's friends. My son is 2 years older than my daughter, who was killed and was in the school building at the time she was killed. They all came to support and to be there for us and for him in our darkest moment. And that's just one example of community showing up. These families in Texas are going to need the community to show up.
I remember talking about Winnipeg, very, very traumatized by what had happened to your family. It was one of the things we talked about then. When something like this is unfolding, does it take you back personally to relive, Jimmy?
Of course.
Absolutely. In a lot of ways it does. We are 10 years almost from when our daughter was killed. The pain.
His daughter died at fucking 6? Jesus. And it's like, and it was like 10 years ago? The fuck, man? That's nuts.
And the grief and the feeling of missing her is still here. The difference 10 years later,
I can't imagine what it's like to lose a child. Someone who has like problems, like whether it be like mental health or some other shit like that, and or like just has a white supremacist attitude in general, and you know decides to fucking go murder a bunch of kids. Like, I just don't understand that. Like, it's so sad. Like, I don't know.
Can speak for myself is that these feelings are more familiar, so that I'm able to deal with them more effectively. And I pray that that is true for these families in Texas. That over time, the pain is not going to go away. You don't move on. You don't get over it. But that with support and with care and sustained support and care, not the kind of support that is there for the first couple days or weeks and then goes away, but support that's sustained over years and years. Um, with that kind of support over time,
Yes.
these families can make it.
I want to move to the issue of gun control and the latest push, but I would like to hear from you on one more personal question, because as we've covered things this morning, we've been just showing very, very poignant images of the families waiting. They had to go to the reunification centers, they had to give DNA samples in some cases, and it took long into the night before they found out if their child was among the victims. What has that period of not knowing been like for them, having lived it yourself?
Well, I can't speak for them, but I know for us, the not knowing is it's. I would never want anyone to have to go through that. It is a horrible feeling not to know where your child is, if your child is safe, if your child is dead, if your child is hurt, if your child is.
Like, I can't imagine, like, being a parent in this instance and, like, hearing that, you know, there's an active shooter situation going on at the fucking school that your child goes to. Like, it must be, like, one of the hardest things to comprehend. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, the people that, you know, are fucking doing these, like, they should not have fucking weapons. They should have background checks done on them. And they should have the services that they need in order to get better. Like, it's just really hard to understand it.
Somewhere needing you, it's a horrible feeling not to know those things. So I can very much empathize with those families.
After the loss of your daughter, you added your voice, as so many of the parents did, to honor her by forming various organizations and pledging to end gun violence. And yet just this year, we were just hearing 27 school shootings this year alone, Jimmy. It clearly has not.
27? It's like almost just barely the end of May. The fuck? How have there been 27 school shootings already? That's fucking nuts.
Not ended. How does that feel to you 10 years on?
I'm angry. I'm angry that there are some very committed politicians. I can speak of the senators, the U.S. senators from my state of Connecticut, Chris Murphy and Richard Blumenthal, who have been committed to very common sense, gun responsibility legislation. There are so many in Congress that are opposed to it. And unfortunately, most of it, not all, but most of it.
How the hell do you see, you know, fucking kids buying, like, the double digits in schools and, like, not, like, to fucking gun violence and not want to fucking do anything about it? But I mean, I guess to be fair, like, they don't give a shit about, you know, fucking white kids dying, so, like, of course they wouldn't give a shit about, like, this instance in Uvalde. Like, from what I understand, like, Rob Elementary School was, like, mostly like more in a Hispanic area, as well as, you know, them being fucking hugely fucking poor too. It's just nuts to me.
Of it runs along party lines here in the United States.
Yes.
I am angry at the cowardice and the inaction of those Congress people who will not stand up and say we must keep our community safe.
You know, we heard similar sentiments from the U.S. president last night as he addressed your nation, and he talked about getting the backbone to deal with the lobbyists and to take on the gun industry. And
He won't, though.
denounced the lawmakers that you reference there, but he asked this question: why are we willing to live with this carnage? Can you answer
This is
that?
America, baby.
Well, I think, Heather, a little bit has to deal with when incidents like this happen.
Like, I understand that in America, like, kids dying to fucking gun violence at school is like a normal thing at this point, which, you know, obviously it fucking shouldn't be that way. Like, no fucking kid should have to worry about, you know, fucking dying when they go to school. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, as a Canadian man, I just do not understand that. Like, how could you fucking normalize, like, murdering children? It's fucking nuts.
When there is just an unthinkable level of loss to gun violence, as there was yesterday in Texas, as there was almost 10 years ago for us here in Connecticut, there's a lot of attention and a lot of momentum, but that subsides after a little while for various reasons, and people tend to move.
Yeah, and like that's another thing is like when incidents like this happen, especially in the States, they generally tend to like fizzle out whenever, you know, there's some shit like popping off like this. It's fucking wild. Either because like a new fucking tragedy has moved on, has happened, and you know they completely forget about these people that, you know, are still suffering, and a lot of yeah, it's just either or it's like there's like another new fucking mass shooting like at a school or something. Like, it's ridiculous.
Move on and forget. The families don't have the option of moving on and forgetting, though.
Absolutely,
Our pain,
completely agree with him.
our journey continues to this day. What we need is sustained attention, and for people not to forget, to remember all these beautiful children who were taken, who were murdered, and to not forget about them, not forget about these situations, because it becomes, you know, in our very rapid news cycle, something else makes news, and it does not become, it's not top of mind anymore.
Right.
We need sustained attention, and hopefully that's sustained.
Yeah, and he's completely right about that. Like I always think like American news is like wild and fucking nuts, like talking about like random bullshit that doesn't even fucking matter when they have instances like this where there's like a legitimate thing that's a problem that could easily be solved, but they want to talk about like, I don't know, the fucking how green M&M is like less sexy or some bullshit like that. Like, I'm sorry, but I think like 19 kids dying is a little bit more important than how much you want to fuck the green M&M.
Sustained attention turns into sustained pressure on those Congress people and senators who need to act now.
But you know, thinking back 10 years, with U.S. President Barack Obama at the time leading the way, the feeling was after 20 children had their lives taken, if not then, when? And still no change. And now 19 more children. And again, that question is in the air. And so you have, for example, Senator Chuck Schumer trying to get background check legislation onto the Senate agenda. That could come in the next day or two. Is there any degree of optimism that at this point, finally, enough is enough?
There's always hope, but Congress needs to act now.
They won't, though.
That is a short punctuation that says it all. We'll mention the Ana Grace Project, something you do in your daughter's memory, the Ana Marquez Green Endowed Scholarship for incoming music students. You're a musician. Wonderful ways
Well, at least he's doing something good.
to keep your daughter's memory alive. And I thank you so much, Jimmy, for being my guest again. I'm very glad to see you.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How the fuck does that keep happening? Like, how many kids are going to have to die before, you know, actual fucking change happens? Like, it's just, I just don't understand that.
Are following a really sad story happening out of Texas right now. A town called Uvalde, a fairly small town, about an hour and a half away from San Antonio. At least 15 people are dead after a school shooting took place earlier today. We understand around noon or shortly thereafter. It took place at an elementary school. 14 of the 15 people who were killed are school-age children between the grades of 2 and 4. The 15th person is a teacher. All that information confirmed by the governor of that state, Greg Abbott, who also confirmed the shooter in this incident. An 18-year-old man was shot and killed, or was killed rather, by responding officers. The governor also says there are 2 officers who were injured in the shooting, though their injuries are not said to be life-threatening. There's a whole lot we don't know at this point as well. First of all, the motivation, what type of gun was used, whether it was legally or illegally obtained. The governor also spoke about...
I mean, like, that ultimately doesn't matter, because you already have, like, fucking dumbass Republicans being like, oh, it doesn't matter because, you know, even if we make guns illegal, people are gonna still fucking murder or some bullshit like that. Like, okay. Like, don't you think that, you know, it would help bring down the fucking murder rate of, you know, fucking children? Like, I just don't understand that. Like, it's the same shit with the conservatives here. Like, they want to fucking... they want to release, I guess, the story top of my head right now, like a lot of the regulations for guns, and you know, they want to make fucking America 2.0. Like, it's nuts.
The shooter shooting his own grandmother before entering the school. We don't know the circumstances around that, though, or any more details. Like I said, motivation is still a very big question mark. However, at least 15 people we can confirm have been shot and killed at that elementary school. Uvalde is about 135 kilometers west of San Antonio. My understanding is that U.S. President Joe Biden, on his return from a trip to Asia, was briefed, I think on Air Force One, about the situation. He is supposed to be making an address, making remarks about what's happened at about 8:15 Eastern. That's just preliminary at this point. If the time moves, of course, I'll let you know. But we do anticipate U.S. President Joe Biden will be making remarks to address this school shooting taking place in Texas. We do have some remarks just coming into our newsroom from police. Like I said, we're waiting for a live press conference for more details, more robust details and confirmation of what took place. But right now we do have some preliminary comments from police, and I'd like to play them for you.
I'm going to make a statement, and at this point we won't take any questions. We will give you a time when we'll be addressing the media soon. At approximately 11:32 a.m. this morning, there was a mass casualty incident at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. The school has children that are in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. I can confirm right now that we have several injuries, adults and students, and we do have some deaths. The suspect is deceased at this point. DPS is assisting with the investigation. And at this point, the investigation is leading to tell us that the suspect did act alone during this heinous crime. Families are being notified, and we are providing services to them as the district should. As far as the rest of the district is concerned, safety measures were taken to make sure that we had a safe release for the rest of the district throughout our city of Uvalde. And we had numerous law enforcement officers and agencies that assisted with the safety release for those students. We do want to keep all our families in their prayers. I hope you do as well. And we also want to respect the privacy of the family. Everything is still being worked on. And again, we'll notify the parents and the families as soon as we have some news for them. Thank you so much.
That's an early update from police in Uvalde on the shooting that took place there, as according to police at 11:32 this morning. He called it a heinous, the police officer there called it a heinous crime. Said that the children killed, 14 of them, according to Governor Greg Abbott, were in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades. The police there also confirming that the suspect is dead, as Governor Abbott had indicated, and that he did act alone. That is something that police made clear, that this was a lone actor, and that families involved have been notified. He also spoke about safety measures being in place for the safe release of other kids, because of course the school, my understanding is Robb Elementary has an enrollment of just under 600 kids who would have been in school then. Their last day of school for the school year was actually supposed to be Thursday.
What? It's supposed to be tomorrow? They were killed 2 days before the summer break? Fuck, that sucks even more, man. Like, I mean, yeah, 21 people dying from this is already fucking sad, but like, no, now instead of having fun with their friends and a whole bunch of and enjoying their summer, now their fucking families are gonna have to arrange funerals and shit for the loss of life that this fucking monster did.
Once again, 14 kids killed in a mass casualty event, as police termed it, a heinous crime in Texas. They were in grades 2, 3, and 4. A 15th person is dead as well, according to Governor Greg Abbott, a teacher in that case. I want to bring in CBC's Sarah Galash, and she's on our breaking news desk this hour. Hi, Sarah. Thanks very much for joining our coverage here. Just going over some of the details as we wait for what we expect is an update, will be an update from police on our watch this evening, to confirming some of the details. We really don't know what the motivation is here. We don't know the particulars of the weapon used, whether it was illegally or legally obtained. Tell us a bit about what we do know.
But like, why does that matter if it was legally or illegally obtained? Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, that's the last of the fucking problems. Like, that doesn't matter. People can fucking kill other people with legally purchased weapons. The only difference is that, like, it's easier to track legally purchased weapons. That's the only difference. Because fucking guns, like, they're just created to fucking to kill. That's all that they do. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I find shooting guns very fucking fun. But like, you do have to understand that they're designed to kill.
Now. Well, we know from the various press conferences, including the governor who we've spoken to, that this 18-year-old high school student in Uvalde abandoned a vehicle, entered the elementary school using either a handgun, maybe also a rifle, we're told he may have had. And as you point out, we don't know whether those were legally obtained weapons that he had, but that he shot and killed the 14 students. And you point out the grades 2, 3, and 4. These are the students, these 14 were in those grades as well. A teacher was killed. Romas, the gunman who's been identified by authority figures, including the governor, and this is Salvador Romas, the high school student I'm talking about, was himself killed by, they believe, responding police officers. As well, 2 of those responding police officers did suffer injuries, but we have not heard more on their condition at this point, only that they were injuries. There are a lot of questions that we still have, and that a lot of authority figures in the United States have about what has happened here. And already we are hearing from those who are, have been advocates against gun violence, in particular Senator Chris Murphy. I don't know if you've seen this yet, Vashi, but he's a Democrat senator from Connecticut. And of course, this news hitting very close to home for him. He has already put out a very impassioned plea, asking other lawmakers, what are we doing, he said, considering, as he put it, that this is the next Sandy Hook. This is the deadliest school shooting since that horrific shooting in Sandy Hook.
I mean, he's not even wrong about that, though. Like, in Sandy Hook, I think it was, what was it, 26 people had died? Yeah, 26 people had died in Sandy Hook. And this shooting so far, like, 21 have died.
In Connecticut and in his jurisdiction. So, a lot is being said right now about what has happened. It is very early hours. As you point out, there are still a lot of questions that we don't know, but what we do know, and really it is the bottom line, is that 14 elementary school students are dead because of this.
Okay, thanks so much, Sarah. I really appreciate it. And Sarah will be sticking with us throughout the program. Sarah Galashan there on our breaking news desk. As you heard Sarah mention, the Associated Press is saying that this shooting is the deadliest one at a U.S. grade school since the shocking attack at Sandy Hook Elementary in Newton, Connecticut. That was almost a decade ago. I know most of you watching will remember that very clearly. John Woodrow Cox is a reporter at the Washington Post. He authored the 2021 Pulitzer finalist book, Children Under Fire, An American Crisis. The book investigates the effectiveness of gun safety reforms as well as efforts to manage children's trauma in the wake of neighborhood and school shootings. Hi there, very, very good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Gosh, what a terrible thing to just even say. I can't even believe it. Grades 2 to 4. If I could ask you for your sort of thoughts as you watch this play out, I guess I could say yet again.
Yeah, it's horrifying. I've written almost exclusively about this subject for more than 5 years now, and I know what this puts a school through and a community through. I know what the children who survived are going to endure, and the parents who've lost children, the years of anguish that they have in front of them. And,
One aspect that I think is generally missing from this conversation is the amount of PTSD that those who actually survive a fucking active school situation, or because a lot of students that are often engaged in this kind of action, like, they're going to suffer from PTSD from, and it's something that should be fixed. The best way of doing so is providing free universal therapy, or of in the US it just at the very least, and providing mental health services too. Well,
the worst part, of course, is that these things are preventable. They don't have to happen, but this country has allowed it to continue to happen, and this is not the end. It won't stop with this shooting.
There'll be the first, or it's not going to be the last.
Until America decides that this is no longer something they're willing to bear.
And are you speaking specifically, I guess, about gun control, about reforms to gun control legislation as it exists in the U.S. right now? What do you mean by that?
Gun control.
Well, we know that a lot of school shootings are totally preventable. We know that more than half of school shootings simply would not occur if adults locked up their guns. If children did not have access to weapons. How the shooter got the gun.
Okay, so for context, like, here in Canada, my family does own some guns. And everything is locked up and taken care of. So uh, we have it locked. We have a locker on the chamber, so you can't put in the bolt or magazine. No, that's locked in a secure location, and the ammunition is locked in a separate storage container. So, well, like that's we'd do that either way, but like it is the law, fortunately. So, yeah, it's just like I think if at least if parents of children do that, that would prevent a chunk of these school shootings from happening.
And we don't know yet. But there are simple things that we could do that would make a difference. We do know that the only difference between the United States and every other developed nation are our gun laws, people's ability to easily get fired.
There are other things that separate you from every other comparable OECD nation, like universal health care for one. That's another thing as well.
Firearms and virtually anyone's ability to get a firearm. That is the difference. Americans are not uniquely evil people. So when we're comparing this country to every other, that is the difference. So everybody thought really after Sandy Hook that there would be this transformative change at the federal level and all these laws would be passed,
but it didn't happen. And unfortunately, I don't, even though this is like the second largest mass shooting incident to happen since the 70s, I don't think anything's going to happen after the Uvalde situation either. Like, as much as I hate to say it, like as much as I want there to be something that that would change, I highly doubt something's actually going to happen from it.
That didn't happen. There's been a lot of work done and a lot of effort made, but Congress has done virtually nothing on this for a very long time.
And I do want to make clear to our viewers at this point with this situation, I don't have a lot of information about, for example, what in particular, which weapons were used, how they were obtained. We are expecting that information from police. We also, all the information we have at this point is really just confirmed from the governor that 14 kids were shot and killed and a teacher. We know that others are injured, but we don't know the extent of those injuries. We don't even know the extent, the degree to which, or how many people, in addition to those who were killed, were injured. I noticed in the, as I was introducing you,
if I'm not mistaken, I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 2 critically injured currently and 21 dead.
Also done some work studying trauma in kids in particular. I know, again, we're not really that familiar with the particulars around this, but my goodness, just even the idea that 14 kids in grades 2 to 4 were killed. I mean, what might that community be dealing with?
I mean, it's numb right now. I mean, they're in a state of shock, which is always the initial reaction. Even though this visits communities in America frequently, it is a thing that always seems far away until it's not far away, until it's visited their community. And, people are dealing.
Yeah, like the crazy thing is like, this could happen like anywhere in America. And a lot of people are comfortable with that. And then when this shit pops off in their neighborhood, they get scared and decide to fucking to increase gun sales because they think that they need the protection. Which, you know, I don't necessarily disagree with, but like there's so much like structural change that needs to be done to like actually prevent that stuff from happening and keeping the citizens safe as well.
Dealing with absolute horror. They're finding out, literally right now, parents are finding out that their kids are gone, because what always happens after these things is they gather up all the kids who survived and they take them to one communal place, and parents try to find their children. And many of those parents will not find their children. Their children will be gone. And then eventually, whether it's happened yet or will in the coming hours, somebody will pull them aside and tell them that their child's dead. That is the routine. And, you know, the community, we often think of the victims of these things as the people who were shot, the children and adults who died. But the number of victims is so much larger than that. You know, one thing I read about in my book, a database that we built at the Washington Post that tracked how many children have been on K through 12 campuses during a school shooting since Columbine. That number is now over 300,000. 300,000 kids have been on a campus when the school shooting occurred. Only a fraction of those kids were physically harmed, but a huge percentage of those kids will deal with the trauma of what they've witnessed, what they've heard, what they've hid from for the rest of their lives. And so will their siblings, so will their parents. All those people will suffer because of an event that, you know, usually occurs in a matter of seconds or minutes.
And I imagine when you speak to parents, for example, or you interview people in the community, this isn't something, I know that often, you know, for example, this will be in the news today and it will be in the news tomorrow, but obviously it's something that they have to grapple with long after. I imagine it's not something they just move on from with any type of ease.
Yeah, no, never. I mean, this will linger with them forever. You know, I'm still close to parents who lost children in the Sandy Hook attack. That was 10 years ago, it was a decade ago, and they live with that loss every day. Every single day, they are reminded about what they lost. And that will be true for these families until they're gone. They'll never get over it. And that community won't ever get over it. The first responders who had to walk through that school and see that horror, they won't ever get over it. You know, the number of victims from just this shooting in this small Texas town will measure in the thousands, And, you know, the other thing that happens is every time there is another shooting, everybody who's already lived through one, they live through it again. They go through it all over again. So, you know, it is a perpetual traumatization that occurs.
And when you talk about the total hesitancy of Congress to actually effect change that would, you know, act to prevent something like this from happening, I guess lots of us on this side of the border kind of watch this unfold and think like, how can these images, how can this type of event with young kids not compel some, but obviously it doesn't. Is there, you know, what would you attribute to the inertia?
So, you know, I tell people this all the time. Americans broadly are not divided on the need for gun safety reform. You know, over 90% of Americans routinely universal background checks. There are all sorts of other sort of what's called common sense regulations that are overwhelmingly supported by everyday Americans, including most gun owners. Where there's a breakdown is in the Senate. I mean, that's really it. There are about 7 or 8 Americans because of the filibuster, which requires the Senate to get 60 votes rather than just a simple majority. There are 7 or 8 Americans deciding for every other American that there will be no new gun laws, that there will be no gun safety reform. It is that simple. It is that sort of small number. And until those senators decide that there is more of a political cost in their state to vote for a gun safety regulation than to vote against one, things won't change. It's going to require that tipping point for that handful of small Americans to say, you know, this is politically worth it for me now.
I mentioned a few moments ago that we are waiting for an update from police. Is there anything in particular that you'll be listening for?
I want to know how he got the gun. That's is often a question that is not asked, but I'm very curious. Where this was as early reports said, that this was a high school student, 18 years old, so an adult. So he could have gone out and gotten the gun himself in the state of Texas. But I'm very curious how he got the gun. How he got into the school. Those elements I'm always very interested in, and specifically what weapons he used, whether he used a semi-automatic rifle, and whether he had an extended magazine, things that we often see in these mass casualty events.
Okay, Mr. Cox, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks very much for making the time for us this evening. I appreciate it. That's John Woodrow Cox. As you heard him there, referred to a press conference we are expecting from police to update us on the situation in Texas. What you're looking at right now is the flag on top of the White House in Washington. It has been lowered in memory of the victims of that shooting. 15 of them, at least, that we know of right now. 14 of those young children in grades 2, 3, and 4. The 15th victim, a teacher at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, just about an hour and a half away from San Antonio. We are standing by to hear from police, to get some more details. We don't know what the motivation of the 18-year-old man who is accused of conducting this heinous crime, as police characterized it. We don't know what his motivation was. We know some details. We've heard some reporting that he had a handgun, possibly a rifle. We don't know in which manner those weapons were obtained. Again, information we're standing by to hear from police. As you heard our last guest talk about, though, this certainly is not the first school shooting.
Yeah, I just had to quickly drop off my dad, pick up the car. Ooh.
It is the deadliest one taking place at a grade school since Sandy Hook about a decade ago.
Yeah, like, it's just crazy to me. Like, they always seem to have, like, a really big mass shooting at a school, like, every decade or so.
One of the former representatives of the district that encompasses Sandy Hook in Connecticut, now a senator, Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat, he made some remarks about the shooting that took place in Texas today. I want to play those remarks for you. Have a listen.
14 kids dead in an elementary school in Texas right now. What are we doing? What are we doing? Just days after a shooter walked into a grocery store to gun down African American patrons, we have another Sandy Hook on our hands. What are we doing? There have been more mass shootings than days in the year.
That's crazy, man.
Our kids are living in fear every single time they set foot in a classroom because they think they're going to be next. What do we do?
And, like, arming the teachers won't necessarily help either. Like, what the fuck are they gonna do? And, like, as far as I'm concerned, the teachers don't need to be fucking armed, and, like, they shouldn't be. Like, the gun problem needs to be fucking solved.
Doing? Why do you spend all this time running for the United States Senate? Why do you go through all the hassle of getting this job, of putting yourself in a position of authority, if your answer is that as this slaughter increases, as our kids run for their lives, we do nothing? What are we doing? Why are you here? If not to solve a problem as existential as this. This isn't inevitable. These kids weren't unlucky. This only happens in this country and nowhere else. Nowhere else do little kids go to school thinking that they might be shot that day. Nowhere else do parents have to talk to their kids, as I have had to do, about why they got locked into a bathroom and told to be quiet for 5 minutes just in case a bad man entered that building. Nowhere.
I mean, like, as like safety precaution here in Canada, we do that too. Because, you know, like for like the very, 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 very small chance that a situation like this actually does happen, at least they'll, you know, be prepared for it, right? But like here in Canada, it's like a next to 0% chance of actually happening. Unfortunately, I'm very grateful that that we don't have that problem here. Unfortunately, we have a bunch of other problems to fucking solve as well, but school shootings is fortunately not one that we have to deal with.
Where else does that happen except here in the United States of America? And it is a choice. It is our choice to let it continue. What are we doing?
That's U.S. Senator Chris Murphy. He was a representative.
And like, he's completely right about that, though. Like, the choice, like there is a fucking choice on like what the fuck to actually do about it, but like the fucking senators and like the House and whatnot in the fucking states don't give a shit about people. Like, I mean, to be fair, like we don't give a shit about like our government doesn't give a shit about people either, but at least they try and pretend, like accidentally pass good things.
He's now a senator in Connecticut. He was a representative of the district that encompassed Sandy Hook, the elementary school where another school shooting took place about a decade ago.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics.
Listen here.
Horrifying pattern. Once again, school children gunned down by one man, firing a handgun, possibly a long gun, murdering kids in grades 2, 3, and 4 at school. This time in Uvalde, Texas, a small city. Parents scrambling to get information to find their young sons and daughters in the chaos, or trying to absorb the shock that their kids may be gone forever.
My heart was broken today. We're a small community, and we'll need your prayers to get us through this.
Robb Elementary was surrounded by investigators. The suspected shooter is dead, possibly killed by police. He lived in Uvalde, says the Texas governor.
The shooter was Salvador Romas, an 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun, and he may have also had a rifle, but that is not yet confirmed.
Multiple reports say Ramos shot his grandmother before driving towards the school. A state senator says he legally bought 2 assault rifles on his 18th birthday, but still unknown what triggered a young man to murder.
Bro, I can't imagine having fucking cops like walk around like this constantly. Like the only time when they actually pull like big fucking guns like this is like huge incidents like this, but this is like a general thing. See the cops do.
Kids in class, and why does it keep happening?
This only happens in this country and nowhere else. Nowhere else do little kids go to school thinking that they might be shot that day. Nowhere else do parents have to talk to their kids, as I have had to do, about why they got locked into a bathroom and told to be quiet for 5 minutes just in case a bad man entered that building. Nowhere else does that happen except here in the United States of America, and it is a choice. It is our choice to let it continue.
Flags in Washington were lowered again for the second time in 2 weeks. President Biden condemned a mass shooting.
As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done?
But America seems powerless to curtail gun violence. At least 30 shootings in U.S. schools so far this year.
Now, Susan,
like,
this is
it's still crazy to me that they had fucking 30 so far. Like, I just can't wrap my head around that. Like, how the when was the last one in Canada? The last one was what? Last one was so the last one for like, school would be in 2007 on May 23rd. But there is another one that happened in on April 5th, 2013. That happened at a daycare. And they had, and like, over the course of like roughly the same amount of time, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We had 6. And they had 30 in a year? Like, the fuck? Like, I can't even, I just don't even know what to say.
Developing story. What more have you managed to find out?
Well, we now know that that gunman crashed his truck into a ditch or a gully near the school and got out of the vehicle wearing body armor, carrying an assault rifle, and a backpack.
Wait, he had fucking body armor? How the fuck does this happen? What? I don't understand how all these fucking mass shooters get like fully automatic weapons, fucking body armor, and like all this shit. Like, I just don't understand that.
And there was some shooting before he headed towards the school, which raises a question about whether that elementary school was his intended target. We also know, of course, most of the victims are children, grades 2, 3, and 4, but among those victims was their 4th grade teacher.
Susan Ormiston, thank you very much.
Disgusting, man.
Yesterday, 2 adults and 19 children were killed. Law enforcement officials now say this morning that the 18-year-old shooter barricaded himself inside a classroom and shot at anyone who was in his way. All of the children who were killed were in the same class. Throughout the evening, parents were providing DNA to investigators in order to help identify the victims. And family members have started sharing the names of the victims, including the 2 4th grade teachers, Eva Morales and Irma Garcia, both women in their 40s. The children that we know of so far are all 9 and 10 years of age. With me now is Kirk Burkhalter, law professor and former NYPD detective. Good morning. I'm glad you can be with us. Your thoughts right now as you've had some time to absorb yet another mass shooting in the United States. I talked to you just last week after the Buffalo shooting at Tops.
Certainly, and that's the first thought that comes to mind. We just spoke about this last week, and here we are with an event, if one can even imagine, which seems just a little bit more horrific because of the age of the victims. You know, the children and the elderly are the most vulnerable members of our community. It's bad enough. I mean, when someone loses their life and when several folks lose their life in such a senseless manner. But as you put up these photos and We heard that child describing the incident. It's just unbelievable. We all think about where we were in 4th and 5th grade, and if we would even be able to comprehend what occurred. And chances are, these children will be unable to comprehend this horrific event. It's in this country. It's just time has come to cease the rhetoric and to take some form of action. This has become somewhat of the new normal, but it doesn't mean we have to accept that by any means.
Are you optimistic? Are you hopeful that change will come as a result of this? You know as well as I do, so many people said if Newtown didn't do it, nothing would. But here we are again, a decade later, 19 children slaughtered in one classroom, and there were multiple survivors, as you point out, and as we just heard, witness this, and whose lives are now marred forever.
Well, I am cautiously optimistic, and one, because that's my nature, and two, not so much because of my great faith in our political process, but more so in my faith in people. And I think that the American people have just about come to the tipping point with the proliferation of gun violence in this.
How many more fucking children will have to die before that tipping point is reached, though? Like, it seems like every fucking week there's like a new shooting that fucking happens and fucking children die. Like, how many more fucking people have to die before something's actually done about that?
This country, not only with mass shootings, but also with crime and random shootings. I live here in New York, where crime has really spiked, and the root of all evil here tends to be.
But that's not even true, though. Like, crime is down like everywhere. So I'm just more confused about that thing. Like, crime is down. So I don't understand where he's fucking getting all this shit from. It's just like instances like this, and even more like petty crimes get fucking blasted because, you know, the fucking news has like nothing to talk about. So they either make shit up or like talk about like the smallest things to get like fucking white suburbanites to be fucking afraid.
Of firearms, and in particular assault weapons and ghost guns and so forth. Public can only take but so much, and perhaps that will be the impetus for some type of change that may push our lawmakers into taking some form of federal action.
You're a former NYPD detective. Can you talk to us about what would have been going on in those first moments when law enforcement were alerted to the fact that there was an active shooter entering a school? We know that there had been a domestic a short time before with the alleged shooter attacking his grandmother and then taking off in a vehicle that crashed. But how did law enforcement respond? What has changed in terms of response to an active shooting?
Well, what's interesting is no matter where the jurisdiction is, if it's a very populous area or a rural area, such as where this occurred, the average police officer is not riding every day, riding in their vehicle or walking their beat, thinking, wow, I may encounter an active shooter or mass shooting situation within the next 5 minutes. It's just something that police officers don't necessarily think about while they are trained for it. When they respond here, they have several missions. One is to protect life. The other is to protect themselves, because after all, they can't help anyone.
But like, fucking cops don't even protect life, though. Especially not in the States. Like, they fucking actively take away life. It's crazy.
If they don't protect themselves. And they also have very limited information. So you have to figure when they respond to the scene, they don't know where the shooter is. They don't know if there's one shooter or multiple shooters. They don't know what type of weapons the shooter has. And certainly nowadays, as we have seen, they don't know if the shooter has body armor. So these officers are responding, especially to a school. They don't know what they may find. I think they did a heck of a job as far as keeping their cool and attempting to do their number one job, which is to neutralize the threat. And that's what they appear to do. But it's something.
But like half the time, they don't even do that. Like in most instances of school shootings, for example, oftentimes the fucking the shooter will, fucking kill a fuck ton of people, and then like kill themselves, and they won't fucking know that the shooter's dead until like fucking 2 hours later. Like I mean, in this instance, it's more of a more of an exception than the rule, but generally speaking, they won't they don't want to fucking do their job and like actually pursue the fucking shooter and save fucking civilians.
That all the training in the world really can't prepare you for unless you're in a war zone, and this is an everyday, all-day occurrence. That's a very situation. But remember, our police officers, while they are paramilitary members of a paramilitary organization, they are civilians and they are operating in a civilian environment where the mission of the police is far more broad than simply responding.
And like, I honestly don't think that the fucking police should be like a paramilitary organization anyways. Like, it's fucking crazy that that's the take on it, right? Like, who fucking cares about like all that shit? Like, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're gonna be encountering like fucking tanks and like landmines and shit. Like, I honestly don't think that they need all these fucking toys.
To shootings.
What are the next steps in the investigation based on your experience?
The primary goal now is first and foremost to provide any and all support to the victims, which also comes in the families of the victims, rather, which also comes in the form of closure. So the victims certainly need to know why this occurred. Police need to find out if what the motivation was, if there was anyone that provided any form of assistance, how this young man obtained the gun or gun.
I'm fully expecting this to happen. Like, since he's Latino, I imagine that the conversation is going to divulge in like illegal immigrants, like even if he was a fucking legal immigrant, and like how they're fucking like, ruining the fucking great country and all that bullshit. Like who fucking cares about that? There are a lot of like systemic problems that need to be solved, whether it's like fucking education when it comes to firearms, firearm safety, firearm training, firearm like some people just shouldn't have firearms, and like all that shit, and like mental health services and all that. Like, there's a lot of systemic problems that unfortunately have to do with this. So it ultimately won't even fucking matter.
That he used, and it seems like they were obtained legally, which is just boggles the mind. And this will be achieved by mining through all of the social media data that is related to the shooter, and also interviewing and or interrogating, depending on the nature of their relationship, family members, colleagues, school classmates, and so forth, to try to paint, not only find motivation, but to try to paint a picture and develop a profile of this young man. And at the end of the day, this entire nation needs to understand why this occurred. What would motivate someone to do this? Certainly, given this came just a week or so after the shooting in Buffalo, and there are similarities. Yeah. The police want to determine, is this a copycat crime of some nature?
Well, the obvious similarities, young men, 18 years old. I don't even know if you're a man then, but you're a young man. Some would say you're still a child, that are able to obtain deadly assault weapons, Kirk.
So, the one thing I find fucking crazy about America is you can legally purchase a deadly weapon at a young age, compared to, say, either doing cannabis or drinking alcohol. Like, I just don't understand how, like, young fucking kids are able to get a hold of things that are able to, you know, fucking end someone's life. Like, it's crazy. Like, fuck, I'm really glad I don't live.
Absolutely.
Legally.
And this is something that we see in common. We certainly know that young men of that age can be quite impressionable. As you correctly stated, you know, many of us would still consider folks at that age a child. I think I very much was at that age. And your brain and is not fully formed and able to process information like someone 20 years older. So that certainly is in common. The style of weapon that these shooters seem to be choosing are these AR-15 styled semi-automatic weapons that shoot 2 to 3 rounds.
The reason why they do so, though, is because, like, they're easy to get a hold of, they're plentiful, ammunition is easy to come across, they're lightweight, anyone can fucking shoot them. And, you know, it's just crazy to me, like, how the fuck does that happen?
So this seems to be the weapon of choice, partially because obviously it's easy to obtain, depending on the state that one is in. So there are similarities here. We saw this after 9/11. There were some similarities with these lone wolf type attacks, but that certainly doesn't mean that you would rule out other folks. The big question here, of course, is why a school? Was this a crime of opportunity, or was he targeting this school? That's the huge question here.
I do want
I'd argue, what fucking difference does that make? Like, it shouldn't make a fucking difference. Like, generally it tends to be, you know, because they were fucking bullied or some shit like that. They decide to fucking shoot up a school or some shit like that. Like, it's fucking ridiculous.
I want to ask you one other question. Forgive
It doesn't
my ignorance,
matter.
although I'm a little bit glad that I am ignorant on this subject. These AR-15 assault rifles, where do you buy one, and why would you need?
You can literally buy an AR-15 at, like, fucking Walmart or some shit like that. Like, it's nuts, especially, like, down south. Like, I just don't understand how you can fucking get that. And, like, half the time, from what I understand, they don't even fucking ID you unless you're, like, fucking brown or black.
Need a gun with that much power, Kirk?
Well, that's the question for the ages. You know, my father, who's a retired police sergeant, and I were just talking about this morning. So this AR-15 styled rifle that shoots this particular round, depending on the capacity, if the capacity of the weapon, meaning that clip that fits into the weapon, is only 5
clip,
rounds
it's
or
a magazine.
So, this gun is regulated like a hunting rifle, even though it looks menacing.
What the fuck? How is it regulated like a fucking hunting rifle? Like, no one will use a fucking AR-15 like a fucking hunting rifle. Like, for one, you're just gonna destroy the fucking meat, and for two, like, you don't need an automatic or semi-automatic weapon to fucking kill even like a fucking bear. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, The fuck?
All intensive purposes, given the round that it shoots and the fact that it only fires in a semi-automatic fashion. In most states, it tends to be regulated the same way that you would go and buy a shotgun or some other type of hunting rifle. It is through converting the gun where it's able to fire in an automatic fashion or hold more rounds where it becomes so menacing and deadly. So that is a major.
But like even a semi-automatic gun is fucking menacing. Like that ultimately doesn't matter. It just depends on how fucking fast your trigger finger is. Like it doesn't matter. Like you're still killing a fuck ton of people.
Problem that we have, that anyone can go out and the same way that they would buy a hunting rifle to go hunt rabbits or quail, that they can buy a weapon that can
I love going out into the bush with my AR, fucking semi-automatic, you know, fucking shooting fucking rabbits and all that. I love fucking doing it. It's so much fun, my brother. It's one of the greatest things. It's how you fucking hunt, brother.
Import such mass destruction. It's sad, it's unfortunate, and it is unfortunate that someone would sell a weapon like that, even if it's legal, to an 18-year-old. I cannot understand what goes through the mind of someone who, even though it's legal, says, okay, I guess it's okay for me to hand this kid this weapon that has the capacity.
Because they're making money off of it. That's why. So that's why they do it. Like, do you think that they give a shit, like, if he's, like, fucking 40 or, like, 18? No, of course not. They're gonna be selling him the fucking weapon either way. Because they're making a fuck ton of money off of it. Plus the lack of regulation and laws around it, as you clearly stated, doesn't help either. So that's another one of the fucking problems.
Capacity to do this much damage.
So would a background check prevented this person on his 18th birthday from buying those two weapons?
So that's an excellent question. It's a good possibility that it would not have, unless we find out that he had a history of mental illness or some type of criminal history in his background. If those things.
From what I understand, the shooter, this was his first and last offense. He had no prior instances or run-ups with the law. So
weren't present. A background check may not have presented this. The question is why.
Wait, what? A background check absolutely would, though. Like, I don't think he knows how a fucking background check operates. A background check means that, you know, you scan for red flags, or like if someone's violent or they could potentially become violent. And, you know, if you have those fucking red flags or any other red flags, you won't be getting access to your fucking weapon. That's that's like very simplified on how it works. So there's no way that this guy would have gotten a weapon. Plus, not to mention like all the fucking processing that has to go into a background check as well.
Do we sell these types of weapons to civilians? This is not a hunting rifle, even though it's regulated in the same fashion because of its design and so forth. It is actually a very inefficient weapon. A true person that hunts for sport would never take this weapon out for hunting.
Even fucking hunters wouldn't take it out for fucking killing their deer or something, because it's fucking awful.
Hunting. It's just not that type of weapon. This is designed to kill people, quite frankly.
And in this case, children. Kirk Burkhalter, he's a law professor and former NYPD detective. Thank you so much.
my heartbreak.
Okay, so we're getting on to the Prime Minister talking about the fucking. Oh wait, I guess it's world leaders, but I guess we're starting off with Justina here.
For those impacted by the horrific school shootings in Texas, the students, the parents, the teachers, the entire community have had their lives changed forever by this unimaginable event. All of Canada grieves with our American friends in this terrible, terrible day.
To my Republican colleagues, imagine if it happened to you. Imagine if this was your kid or your grandkid. How would you feel? Could you ever forgive yourself for not supporting a simple law that would make
If they can make money off of it, brother, you know that they will.
these mass shootings less likely? Please, 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 damn it, put yourself in the shoes of these parents for once. Maybe that thought, putting yourself in the shoes of these parents instead of in the arms of the NRA, might let you wriggle free from the vice-like grip of the NRA.
Our country is sickened and
Oh no, I can't wait to fucking hear this. This is gonna be fucking hilarious.
outraged by the senseless evil that struck Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, only yesterday. According to early reports from authorities, it appears that a deranged young man tried to murder his own grandmother, then
He
crashed
literally did murder his grandmother, from what I understand.
his car and then ran into an elementary school and began killing. At least 19 young children and 2 teachers were murdered for no apparent reason at all. Most of all, the entire nation's hearts are broken for the victims and for their families.
Bitch, you don't give a shit about fucking people that were killed at Cobb. Like, there's no shot Mitch McConnell gives a shit.
I know the whole House will want to join me in
Oh, we're getting to the Oibrovs. Let's go, baby.
expressing our outrage and deep sorrow following the shooting at Robb Elementary School in Texas. I know our thoughts and prayers with those affected and all of the families
Hear,
who've
hear.
lost loved ones.
Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by
Oh, it's
echoing what
Boris.
you've just said about the reports of the fatal shooting in a Texan primary school. Our thoughts are with all those affected by this horrific attack.
Ho il cuore affranto per la strage nella scuola elementare in Texas. Prego per i bambini, per gli adulti uccisi e per le loro famiglie. È tempo di dire basta al traffico indiscriminato delle armi. Impegniamoci tutti. Impegniamoci tutti. Perché
He looks so fucking ancient,
tragedie
man.
così non possono più accadere.
Я хотів би висловити сьогодні співчуття усім рідним та близьким дітей, які були вбиті в страшному нападі на початкову школу в Техасі, в Сполучених Штатах. Станом на цей час, наскільки мені відомо, 21 людина загибла, з них 19 дітей. І це абсолютно в мирний час вбивають абсолютно невинних дітей.
Nuestra solidaridad con el gobierno de Estados Unidos, porque son momentos muy tristes, muy difíciles.
I've actually never
Nosotros,
seen in charge of fucking Mexico. This is my first time actually seeing him.
Lo mismo, entonces, padecemos aquí. Hasta ahora, pues de manera directa, nacidos allá, digo acá, no se sabe, pero de que son de origen mexicano, la mayoría no hay duda. Es que toda esa
región de Texas, pues pertenecía a México. Baste ver los apellidos. Son hijos o nietos de mexicanos. Y nos duele mucho, lo lamentamos. Son desgracias, ¿no?, que se lamentan mucho.
So, I think we all know and have said many times with each other, enough is enough. Enough is enough. As a nation, we have to have the courage to take action and understand the nexus between what makes for reasonable and sensible public policy to ensure something like this never happens again.
This is sure. Move on to here though. We've seen this already. So here are some of the people who have died in the shooting. Fortunate that they're like all fucking 10. So Stephen Kerr had actually spoke on matter. Has to say.
I'm not going to talk about basketball. Nothing's happened with our team in the last 6 hours. We're going to start the same way tonight. Any basketball questions don't matter. Since we left shoot-around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here, and a teacher. And in the last 10 days, we've had elderly black people killed in a supermarket in Buffalo. We've had Asian churchgoers killed in Southern California. And now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of the, I'm sorry, I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed.
I mean, does he really expect like those fucking senators to do so? Like, I'd be surprised if it actually fucking passes.
Passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power.
As well as, you know, they're also fucking lobbied by gun manufacturers as well.
So
There's
I
that
ask
too.
you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators.
Wait, is he really asking Mitch McConnell to do something?
Senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like.
course he's going
It's what
to.
we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough. We're going to play the game tonight, but I want every person here, every person listening to this, to think about your own child or grandchild, or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this. We can't sit here and just read about it and go, well, let's have a moment of silence. Yeah, go Dubs, you know. Come on, Mavs, let's go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go play a basketball game. And 50 senators in Washington are going to hold us hostage. Do you realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check?
Yeah, he's actually right about that. Like, at the bare minimum, 90% of Americans want, like, the bare minimum done. And universal background checks. Some want even more, like, roughly around what we have here. But I honestly doubt that the fucking Senate's gonna listen, because the Senate doesn't give a shit about the American people. I'm sorry.
90% of us, we are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
Yeah, he's definitely right about that. Okay, so the Texas massacre is the second deadly school shooting in record in the States. It's right over here. 21 dead. This was the other one that had happened. The death toll continues to mount in the mass shootings at elementary schools in Uvalde, Texas on Tuesday, but already second deadliest shooting at an elementary school, middle school, or high school on record in the U.S. So, Sandy Hook, obviously the biggest one, right? Then you have Baldy at 21. Parkland coming in a little bit behind at 17. And then Columbine at 13. At least 19 students and 2 adults have been confirmed dead in the attack, according to the police, who said they subsequently shot and killed the gunman, which we already know about, whom was identified as Salvador Romas, age 18, a nearby high school. Uvalde shooting comes nearly a decade from the gunman who killed 20 small children, 6 adults at Sandy Hook in Newtown, Connecticut, before taking his own life. As the deaths mounted on Tuesday, the Uvalde shooting outstripped the devastating 2018 massacre at the majority Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, where 17 people have died. The Uvalde attack is the second mass shooting at a school this year. Is the last of the 188th since 1970. How the fuck has there been 188 mass shootings at schools? Like, it's fucking crazy. According to the New York Times, the analysis of the data from K-12's school shooting database, which is compiled by the Naval Coast Guard Schools Center for Homeland Defense and Security. The database includes hundreds of attacks at elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, which in which assailants opened fired on campus, not including the gunmen. At least 200 people have been killed in these school shootings so far. How the hell does that happen, man? So this is apparently the guy who is the representative for Uvalde. His name is Gray Abbott. Last year bragged about how no license training is needed to carrying or training is needed to carry a gun in Texas, which is ridiculous. Republicans in Texas passed an open carry firearm bill last year. Texas safeguards the Second Amendment. The Constitution. Today, the constitutional carry goes around into effect. Texans who legally own a gun are now allowed to carry it in public, no license or training needed, which is fucking nuts to me. Like, how? How does that happen? We'll probably jump into some of the conservative leaders debate if this is boring. I actually kind of want to talk about that. I think we've done enough coverage on the Uvalde shooting for now. If any updates come within like the next week or so, I'll make an update on next week's stream. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully there's not a fucking shooting that happens. In the time frame of a week, but I don't know, man. Okay, let's get to the fucking good stuff, man. If there's nothing else, we'll probably...
Good evening.
Bonsoir, chers amis conservateurs.
Good evening, dear conservative friends.
Je vous souhaite la bienvenue au Québec pour ce débat en français qui se tient pour la toute première
French
fois
language debate,
dans la
which
grande
for the
région de
very
Montréal.
first time will be held in the Greater Montreal region.
En mon nom, en tant que vice-président du parti et co-président du comité organisateur de l'élection du chef, ainsi qu'au nom de mon collègue Ian Brody et des membres du COEC, j'aimerais tout d'abord remercier les gens ici, dans la salle, qui se sont joints à nous ce soir. Merci d'être si nombreux.
Thank you for being here in such great numbers.
Mais merci aussi à ceux et celles qui suivent le débat sur leur écran à travers
let's
le
get to
Canada.
the fun stuff.
Je souhaite tout particulièrement.
Avant de débuter, nous voulons prendre un moment pour
we'd like to
partager
take
notre
a moment
tristesse
to
suite
share
aux événements
our
malheureux
sadness
d'hier au Texas.
following the
De la part
tragedy
de
in
tous les
Texas
Canadiennes et
yesterday.
Canadiens,
On behalf
nos
of all
pensées et prières
Canadians,
sont avec les
our
familles
thoughts
et
and
les
prayers are
communautés
with the
éprouvées.
family and the communities who have suffered the tragedy.
Si vous avez regardé le premier débat anglais
If you
de
watched
semaine
the
passée,
first debate, the English
nous
language
avons
debate,
connu la vision des candidats sur
you
les
have
enjeux politiques.
an idea
Et
of
ce
every
soir,
candidate's vision
nous ferons la
on
même
political
chose, mais
issues in
avec une
Canada.
différence.
And they're all dog shit.
Tonight we'll do the same thing, but in a different
Voici
format.
quelques directives pour les
Here
gens
are some
ici à
directions
Laval
for
avec nous ce
people
soir.
here in Laval
Lorsque
with
les
us tonight.
candidats feront
When
leur apparition sur
candidates will
l'estrade,
appear on the
vous pouvez
screen,
les
on
accueillir
the
chaleureusement.
stage rather,
Ensuite,
do
nous vous
welcome them
demandons de
warmly.
demeurer silencieux
After
durant
that,
le
we would
débat
ask you to
afin
remain
que nous
silent
puissions
during the
éviter
debate
de retard
so that we
dans
can
l'horaire
avoid
assez serré.
delays.
I really hope that they're fucking rowdy.
Nous devons malheureusement retirer
Every
du temps de
time
parole aux candidats.
People
Aussi, si des gens
applaud.
perturbent,
Unfortunately,
Gotta
the
pee.
candidates will lose some time.
quitter la salle.
And if
Merci de
people
rester
interrupt the
silencieux
debate,
durant
they
ce
will be
débat et de
asked
permettre
to
aux
leave the room.
candidats de
Please
vous
remain
présenter
silent during
leurs
the debate and give the candidates
Notre
an
objectif
opportunity,
ce
a
soir
chance to project
est de
their
vous
ideas.
informer,
Our goal
de vous
tonight is
mobiliser
to
dans le
inform you,
processus et de vous
mobilize you
dynamiser.
in the process.
Rendez-vous sur notre site internet au conservative.ca
You
et
can
devenez
find
membre
us
de
on our
notre
internet
parti.
site, conservative.ca,
Reconnaissent
and
que
become
cette
a member
course
of our
arrive
party.
à un moment
Canadians
critique
recognize
dans
that this
l'avenir du
race is
Canada.
coming at a critical
Nous
point in
battons
Canada's
tous les
future.
records d'adhésion de
We are
membership du
beating
parti.
all records
Si vous
for
voulez
signing
avoir
on new members.
un mot à dire
If
sur
you would
l'avenir de
like to
notre
become a
pays,
member
devenez
and
membre
have a voice in the
aujourd'hui.
future of our
La
country,
date limite d'adhésion
join today.
pour
The
voter
deadline
dans cette course à la
for
chefferie
membership to be able to
se
vote in
termine
this
le
leadership
3
race
juin.
is June
Il
3rd.
ne vous reste que 9 jours
You have
pour
only
vous
9
joindre à
days
notre
to
parti
sign
et
up
faire
and join
une
our
différence.
party to make a
Pour
difference.
$15, vous pouvez
For
devenir membre du
$15,
Parti
you can become a
conservateur
member of the
de Canada
Conservative
et
Party of
appuyer le
Canada
candidat qui,
and support
selon vous,
the candidate which,
vous
in your
représente le
view,
mieux.
best represents
Rappelez-vous,
you.
c'est votre pays
Remember,
et ce sont
this
vos
is your
futurs
country,
dirigeants.
and these are your future leaders.
c'est maintenant le temps de vous présenter notre
And
modérateur.
now we will introduce our
Marc-Olivier Fortin
moderator.
possède une
Marc-Olivier
formation
Fortin
en économie et en
has,
administration stratégique. En plus de ses expériences de
is an
travail,
economist.
il est le copropriétaire
He
et président
is a
depuis
co-owner
2020
and,
de
since
Cidre Joli Rouge,
2020,
une entreprise de production de cidre
the
au
owner
Saguenay.
of
Il
Joli
a
Rouge
siégé sur
Cider, which
l'exécutif
makes cider
national
in
du Parti du
Saguenay. He
Canada
has
de 2011
sat on
à
the
2018
Conservative Party's national
et il a siégé à
executive
2 reprises
and,
sur le comité
twice
organisateur de l'élection du chef
sat
du
on
parti.
the organizing committee
Il a aussi
for
été
the
le directeur de
election
campagne pour le
the
Parti
party leader.
conservateur
He
pour le
has been
Québec
campaign
à la
chair
dernière élection
for
fédérale.
Quebec's
Veuillez
Conservative
accueillir
Party
chaleureusement Marc-Olivier
last election.
Fortin.
Please give a warm welcome to Marc-Olivier Fortin.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Merci
Good
Rick et
evening,
Diane
everyone.
pour tout
Thank
le
you,
travail
Rick
que
and
vous
Diane,
faites.
for all
J'ai
your
moi-même
very
été
hard work.
dans leurs chaussures à 2
I have
reprises,
been in
puis
their
je suis
shoes
conscient
twice,
du travail puis
and
du
I'm
temps que
well
ça prend
aware of the
offrir
work
aux
and the
membres
time
vraiment un
that
débat
it
de qualité.
takes
Mon nom est Marc-Olivier
to
Fortin et je
offer
vais être votre
members a
modérateur
quality
ce
debate.
soir.
My name is
Merci
Marc-Olivier
d'être là en
Fortin,
grand
and I
nombre
will be your
et merci
moderator for
également au
tonight. Thank you
comité
for being here in such
organisateur
great
qui m'a
numbers,
invité
and thank
à
you to the
participer en tant
organizing
que
committee
modérateur.
that
Le
invited
Canada
me
est
to
un pays
moderate this
bilingue.
debate.
Vous avez vu
Canada
qu'il y
is
a
a
2
bilingual
semaines,
country.
nos
2
candidats se
weeks
sont
ago, as you saw,
exprimés en
our
anglais.
candidates
Ce
took
soir,
part in an
ils auront la
English language
chance de
debate,
s'exprimer
and
à vous
tonight they'll
en
have the
français.
opportunity
Ce
to
sera
do
des
the same
échanges
in
vigoureux
French.
où ils vont adresser
These
des
exchanges
questions
will
qui
be
vous intéressent, vous les membres du Parti
lively. They will
conservateur,
be
mais
touching on
également
issues of
l'ensemble
interest to
des
you
Canadiens.
as Conservative
Juste
Party
pour
members
revenir un
and
peu
also of
sur
interest
les
to all
règles et le
Canadians.
format du
I'll
débat,
come back
ce sera
for
un
a
débat
moment
d'une
to the
durée de
rules of the
2 heures.
debate. The debate
Et
will
comme mes
last 2
collègues
hours.
l'ont dit, on vous
And
demande
as my
tout au
colleague
long du
said,
débat,
we
comme
ask
ça a
you
été
to
fait dans les
remain
débats
silent
précédents du
throughout the
parti, de
debate,
rester
as
silencieux et
we
assis
asked you to do
pour
during previous
laisser place
debates.
aux
Please
échanges
remain
et
silent
s'assurer
and
qu'on n'est
seated
pas à couper
to let
de temps par
candidates
la
speak
suite.
and to make sure that we
Évidemment,
don't
quand les
have
candidats
to
feront leur
cut
entrée
any
tout à
of their
je vous
time.
invite à
Of
les
course, when
applaudir et
candidates
à leur
come
donner
up on
toute
stage,
votre
do
énergie afin qu'ils
welcome them,
passent une
applaud them
bonne
with
soirée.
all your energy,
Les candidats
and
également auront un temps délimité
encourage them.
qu'ils
Candidates
devront
will have
respecter.
limited time to
Le
speak.
débat se
They will
fera
have
en
to
3 sections distinctes et au début de
those
chaque
limits.
section, ça
There
me
will
fera un
be 3
plaisir de vous
segments to the
expliquer
debate,
les règles.
and I will be
Alors
happy
ça
to
va,
explain
sans
the
plus
rules
tarder,
before
je
each
vous invite à
segment.
accueillir chaleureusement
So
les
without
candidats
further
à la
ado,
chefferie
I
du
would
Parti conservateur
invite
du
you
Canada
to warmly
2022.
welcome the candidates to the 2022
Okay,
Conservative
let's
Party
watch
leadership
the.
race.
Let's watch the candidates. They're all awful. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeet yeet.
Merci. Merci.
Quebec hogs are wild, man.
S'il vous plaît, on va commencer.
Please, we're about to begin.
Le débat va commencer, s'il vous plaît.
The debate is about to begin.
S'il vous plaît, merci.
Please.
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you.
Merci, s'il vous plaît, on va commencer.
Thank you.
J'espère que vous en avez profité parce que c'est la dernière fois
I
jusqu'à
hope that
10 heures.
you enjoyed clapping and
Section
encouraging them
1,
because it's the
déclaration
last time you'll be
d'ouverture des
doing
candidats
it
sur la
during
vision
this
du
debate.
parti.
Now,
Les
a
candidats ont
declaration
reçu
statement by each
à la
candidate
déclaration suivante
on their
à
vision for the
l'avance.
party.
Nous
The
voulons tous ce
candidates
qu'il y a de mieux
received
pour
this
le Canada.
statement. We all want what's best
Du
for
chemin de fer de
Canada,
Sir Johnny MacDonald au
from
libre-échange
John
de
A.
Brian
McDonald's
Mulroney.
Railway to
Lorsque
Brian
votre
Mulroney's
mandat
free
sera
trade.
terminé,
When your
quel
term is
héritage
over,
allez-vous laisser
what legacy
au Canada?
will you
Chacun
leave
d'entre eux
Canada?
auront une
Each
minute
of them will
pour
have
répondre. Et j'invite
45
M.
seconds to
Poilievre
answer,
à
and I
commencer.
would invite Mr. Poilievre to
L'héritage
begin.
sera le pays le plus libre
My
au
legacy
monde,
will be the
où les
freest
gens
country
vont
in the
pouvoir
world,
contrôler leur
where
propre vie,
people will be able
y
to
compris leurs
control their
décisions en
lives,
santé, de
including
ne
their
pas être
health
forcés
decisions.
de se faire
They
vacciner,
will not be
mais
forced to be
de pouvoir
vaccinated.
décider
They'll have an
pour
opportunity
eux-mêmes.
to decide for
Et la liberté
themselves.
économique. Maintenant,
Economic
l'inflation,
But like
equality.
everyone
Now
should be
inflation
vaccinated
has
though
taken that
against
freedom
like
away.
everything.
le pouvoir d'achat aux
By
Canadiens,
returning purchasing
les gens
power
vont
to
pouvoir
individual
acheter
Canadians,
la
we will see
nourriture pour leurs
people who
enfants,
can buy food
le gaz
for
et
their
la
children,
l'essence pour leurs véhicules.
gasoline for their
Et
cars,
nos jeunes vont pouvoir acheter leur
and our
propre
young
maison.
people will be able to
La liberté
afford their
d'expression
own house.
sans la
Freedom of speech
de
without
l'État ou du
censorship
mouvement
by
woke,
the
pour
state
que les
or
gens
by the
puissent
woke
s'exprimer
movement, so that
et
people
avoir
can
leur propre
freely say
idée
what they think
à
and
partager.
make up
Et
their own
finalement,
and make their own
la
ideas
liberté
and share them.
de prendre leurs
And
propres
lastly, the
décisions
freedom to make their
dans
own
le pays le
decisions
plus libre au
in
monde,
the freest
avec les
country
chèques
in
de
the
paix
world
et la liberté.
with
Merci beaucoup.
paychecks, good
S'il
paychecks,
vous plaît, les
and freedom.
applaudissements.
Thank you.
Monsieur Brown, à vous la parole.
Mr. Brown.
Mon héritage, c'est créer
Thank
un
you.
parti
My legacy
conservateur
will be to
fort, uni
create a
et
strong,
gagnant. Un
united
parti
and
qui
winning
remporte les
conservative
élections
party.
afin
One
d'agir sur
that
les bonnes
can
idées que
win
moi-même et mes
elections
collègues
by
ici
acting on
avons
the good
et allons
ideas that
partager
myself
ce
and
soir.
my
Je
colleagues
suis un
will be
combattant, un
sharing
chef
tonight.
et un gagnant.
I am a
Je l'ai
winner,
démontré
a
durant
winning leader,
toute ma carrière.
and
Je suis
I
maire
have
d'une
been
grande
one
ville
my
qui
whole
gagne dans
career.
des
I am
endroits
the
que les
mayor
conservateurs
of a
ne
major
gagnent pas
city that's
traditionnellement.
winning in
Je suis
areas
un
where
conservateur
conservatives
qui
don't
sait
win at
comment
present.
gagner
I'm
dans
a
les régions
conservative who
urbaines.
knows
Je l'ai
how
déjà
to win
fait.
in
Je vais
urban
prendre la
regions,
même
as I
approche
have
que
shown.
j'ai prise pour
I
gagner
will be
là-bas
taking the
à
same
travers le
approach
pays
that I
pour
have
faire en
used
sorte que nous gagnons dans
to
d'autres
win
régions
around
comme le
Canada,
Québec.
so that
Nous
we can
devons
start
bâtir
winning
un
seats
parti
in Quebec.
conservateur
We have to
qui
build
gagnera
a
les élections
conservative
et c'est
party
moi
that
qui va
can
le
win
faire.
the election, and
Merci,
I
Monsieur
am
Brown.
the person who
Monsieur
can do
Aitchison, à
that.
vous la parole.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Aitchison.
Je me présente parce que le système politique
I am
canadien
standing
est brisé.
as a candidate because
Le
Canada's
Canada a
political
besoin de
system is
leaders
broken.
qui offrent de
Canada
vraies
needs
solutions
leaders
aux défis
offering
auxquels les
genuine
Canadiens
It is
solutions
broken,
to
but I don't
challenges
think that the
Canadians face
conservatives are going to
every
fix
day.
it.
My
They
vision
rarely
of
do.
Canada is to ensure that future generations are more prosperous than
Les
ours.
factures d'épicerie,
Grocery
la crise du
bills,
logement
the housing
et le prix de
crisis,
l'essence
and the
rendent la
price
vie
of gas
difficile.
are making life very
Ce n'est
difficult
pas en rendant les
for
Canadiens
people.
plus
It is not
fâchés
by
et plus
making
frustrés
Canadians
que
angrier
nous
and more
apporterons une
frustrated
solution.
that we will
Vous
bring
méritez des leaders
solutions.
qui
You
travaillent pour
deserve
vous
leaders
et
who
non pour
work for
eux-mêmes.
you and not for
Je
themselves.
propose de diriger notre
I
parti
would propose
conservateur
to
et donner
lead
des
our
réelles
Conservative
solutions aux
Party
défis
and
des
to provide genuine solutions to the
J'ai
issues we
l'expérience
face every day.
et les
I
compétences
have the
pour
experience
livrer
and
les
the
les
skills
résultats et de
to
restaurer la
deliver
dignité et le respect
solutions and to
dans notre
restore
système
dignity and
politique.
respect to our
Joignez-vous
political
à moi.
system.
Bâtissons notre
Support
futur.
me, join
Fuck,
me,
I
and
love
let's build
conservatives,
our
man.
future
They're so fucking funny.
Mr. Beber?
Bonsoir. Je suis Roman
Thank you.
Beber.
I'm Roman
Je suis
Beber.
ancien député du Parlement
I'm
provincial
a former
d'Ontario.
member of Parliament
Et je suis très fier
in the
d'être ici
Ontario
aujourd'hui.
legislature,
Le
and I'm
Canada
very
est
happy to
un
be
pays
here today.
bilingue.
Canada
Je
is
sais
a
que c'est
bilingual
très important
country. I
que
know
le
that
Premier
it's very
ministre
important
puisse
for a prime
parler de
minister
deux langues.
to speak
Le
both
3
languages.
dernier, je me réveillais à
Over the
presque tout le
past
matin
3 years,
pour une leçon de français à 7 heures.
had a
Ainsi,
French
je vous
lesson
demande
almost every
de
morning.
pardonner
I
mon
got up at
français
7 a.m.
comme
to
je
do
sais
that.
fort et je
And I
continue
ask you
de
to
m'améliorer.
forgive me because it's
Mon
still not very
héritage
good, but
sera
I'm
que
continuing to
j'ai
improve.
défendu le droit de
My
tout
legacy
Canadien,
will be to have
incluant
defended the
tous les
rights of
Québécois.
all Canadians,
Je suis
including
immigrant
all
au Canada.
Quebecers.
Et je crois
I
que le
Bitch, you don't give a shit about
Canada est
Quebec.
magnifique.
multiculturalism is wonderful.
Nous avons
I am
tous
an
le
immigrant
droit
myself.
religieux et
We all
l'engagé.
have
Je vais
the
demander
right to
de le
our
Québec
religion
gouvernement
and our language.
respecte le
I
droit
would
de
ask
tous les
that the
Québécois.
Quebec
Et
government
je suis
respects the
préparé à
right of
prendre
all
tous
Quebecers,
moyens
and
légaux
I'm ready to
possibles
take any
pour
legal
défendre
means
tous les
necessary
Canadiens.
to defend
Il est
each and
temps
every
que
Canadian.
Merci, M. Baber.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr.
M.
Baber.
Charret?
Mr. Charret?
Je veux que l'histoire
I
retienne
want
que j'ai
history to
réussi à
remember
unir mon
that I
parti,
succeeded in
que
uniting
j'aurais
my
réussi à
party,
élire un gouvernement
that
national
I will have
majoritaire
succeeded
avec une
in
représentation
having
dans
a
chaque
majority
région
government
du Canada.
elected, one
Et
that's
que mon
represented
gouvernement
in
aura
every
incarné des
region of
valeurs
Canada,
conservatrices.
and that
Malgré
my
cela, nous
government will
représenterons en même
represent
temps tous les
conservative
Canadiens, peu
values
importe
while
leur allégeance
representing all
politique.
Canadians.
Mon gouvernement aura
Regardless
été
of their
respectueux
political
des
stripe,
provinces
I
et
wish
travaillé
to
en
leave a
partenariat
government
avec celles-ci.
that has worked in
Notre gouvernement
partnership
aura
with the provinces and
réalisé des grands
respected
projets
them. A
économiques,
government that
énergétiques,
has
environnementaux,
implemented
incluant la
major
réduction du
projects,
carbone,
energy
avec le
projects,
soutien des
reduced our
peuples
carbon
autochtones.
footprint with the
Le Canada
support
Bitch,
of the
you don't give a shit about that.
dans le monde.
will
Nos agriculteurs
become
contribueront
an
plus que
energy
jamais
provider
à nourrir
across
la
the
planète.
world.
Nos minéraux
We will
stratégiques
contribute to feeding
alimenteront
the planet.
des
Our
sources
strategic
d'énergie.
minerals will
Nous serons la destination
be
mondiale
an
pour les
input for
talents.
energy sources.
Les
We will
hommes et
be
les
a
femmes de
world
partout sur la
destination
planète
for
viendront
talent.
vers nous.
Men and women
Et
from
nous
around
laisserons à
the
nos
world
enfants
will
un
come
pays
to
plus
us,
prospère
and we
et
will leave
surtout
a
un
more
pays
prosperous
uni.
country to our
Merci, M.
children
Charret.
and a united country to our children.
Dr. Lewis, à vous la parole.
Dr.
Bonjour
Lewis.
tout le monde. Merci
Hello,
d'être
everyone.
venu ce soir.
Thank you for
Après
being
mon
here tonight.
passage, le pays sera uni
After
et
my
l'importance
mandate,
de
the
la
country will be
contribution
united
distincte de
and
chaque province sera
each
reconnue.
province's
Il faut
unique contribution
présenter
will have
une
been
vision
recognized.
forte
We need
I
to
love how
present
wild she is.
a strong and
Avec moi,
positive common
le
vision.
Canada sera
With me at the
la
helm,
nation
Canada
la
will
plus
be the
prospère
country
et
that is the
libre du
most
monde. Je
prosperous
vais
and
aussi
free in the
toujours
world.
me battre
I
pour
will
protéger
always fight to
notre
protect
souveraineté.
our
Il faut
sovereignty.
défendre
We
la
need to
liberté
defend
d'expression,
freedom of
la
speech,
liberté de religion et la
freedom of
liberté
religion,
de
and
conscience et
freedom of
protéger
conscience. We need to
l'environnement sans
protect
imposer de taxes
all those
sur le
without
carbone.
imposing any
Nous devons être
carbon
le
taxes.
parti qui défend
We will be the
toujours
party
son
that
I mean,
always
notre
defends
the carbon tax like hardly does like
unshakable
anything,
rights. I will unite
to be honest,
party
and like
and
it only hurts the
country
Canadian
to
proletariat
help
even
everyone
more.
prosper and
La
be free.
section 2 du débat maintenant, c'est le
Now we
face à
move on
face.
to
On
the
est
second
rendu
part
à
of the
l'essentiel
debate.
du débat. Les candidats ont reçu les
Candidates
thèmes à l'avance, mais n'ont
have
pas reçu les
received
questions.
the subjects of
Donc,
the
je vais
debate,
poser la
but have
question
not
et tous
received
les
the
candidats
actual
auront à
questions.
tour de rôle
I will
45
put
secondes pour y
the
répondre.
question, and each
L'ordre a été
candidate will have
déterminé avec un
45
tirage
seconds
au
to
sort.
answer.
Suite
The order in
aux
which
réponses
they
des
speak
candidats,
has
on
been
va
established
commencer
by a draw.
un débat ouvert
Once they have
de
all
4
spoken,
minutes.
there will be
Le
a
candidat qui
4-minute
aurait
open
répondu
debate.
en premier
The
à la
candidate who
question
was the first to answer
pourra
the question
ouvrir le débat
will
du face à
open
face.
the
Évidemment, je vais faire tout mon possible pour accorder
will
les
start the
candidats
open
qui
debate
souhaitent parler
afterwards.
le
I
temps
will do
pour le
my
faire.
very best to give all
Si la
candidates wishing
conversation
to
par
speak
contre
the
semble
time.
traîner en longueur,
But
je me permets
if things seem
d'insérer
to
une
drag
question,
on,
évidemment,
I
sur le
will
même thème
take the
sur
liberty
lequel la
of
première question
introducing
portait.
my own
Je refais
question
mes avertissements.
on
Le
the
débat
same
va être un
theme,
bon
of course.
show, mais s'il vous
The
plaît,
debate
gardez
will
pas
be a
les
great
applaudissements
show,
ne le sont pas.
but
Laissez vos
Kind of wish
candidats
that this was going to be in English.
Alors, première
applaud.
question.
Let
It'd be
your
great if it was in
candidates
English.
speak. The first question is on
Le
immigration.
gouvernement du Québec
Oh, immigration, let's go.
000 demandeurs d'asile par le chemin Roxham en 2022. Il
35,000 immigrants
s'agirait d'une année.
to cross, irregular immigrants to
Comme
cross
Premier ministre,
over
comment
Roxanne
comptez-vous
Road.
gérer
As
l'immigration
Prime Minister,
illégale
how will
au
you
Canada?
manage illegal immigration
Et
in
la première
Canada?
personne qui peut
The first
répondre, c'est
person
Dr.
to
Lewis.
speak will be Dr.
Je
Lewis.
suis même immigrante.
Well, I'm an
Je
immigrant
crois
myself.
qu'il faut mettre
think that
l'accent
we must,
sur la qualité
focus
plutôt que
on
sur la
quality
quantité.
rather than on
Nous devons
quantity.
Wait, what?
l'accès au travail pour
access
aider les
to
employeurs
employment.
et
Bro,
à
she's fucking
travail des
crazy.
employés.
What the fuck?
Le système d'immigration
Employees alike.
devrait
The
répondre aux
system
besoins de
must
la
to meet
nation.
the needs of the
Merci,
nation.
Dr. Lewis.
Thank
Monsieur
you,
Baber?
Dr. Lewis. Mr. Baber.
Je suis immigrant au Canada.
I'm an immigrant to
Je suis
Canada
venu au
myself as
Canada
well.
avec
I
ma
came
famille
to Canada with my
quand
family
j'avais 15 ans.
when I was 15.
Nous avons reçu toutes les bénédictions
We
de notre
received
pays.
a
Et
lot of
nous avons
benefits from
également
this
beaucoup
country,
contribué à ce
and
pays.
we've contributed greatly
Je
to the
crois
country
que
in
le
return as well.
multiculturalisme
I
canadien
think the
est
Canadian
magnifique.
multiculturalism is a
Le
great
Canada
thing.
a une population âgée.
Has
Nous avons
a
besoin
young population or
d'immigration
an
légale.
aged population
Et
rather.
pourquoi
We
les
need
immigrants
immigration.
viennent au
I
Canada?
mean, yeah, we do need immigration.
And for opportunities,
Ce sont
quite
thèmes de
simply.
ma
Of
campagne.
course, but like, at the same time, we should be like
Values are conservative
Et nous
values.
ne devrions pas céder
solving
les
the
votes
material
des
conditions that a lot of Canadians here have as well. Like, I don't give a shit what side of an imaginary line people are born. Like, I don't give a shit. If they want to come here, they can come here.
Because it
Les gens
makes
peuvent faire dans la
it's
façon
more
légale. Et
difficult
maintenant, les
to
listes de
immigrate
temps pour
legally.
l'unification de famille est trop longue. Maintenant,
The family
les pénuries
unification
de
process
main-d'œuvre
is far too long.
pour le secteur de
Labor shortages
construction,
in the construction industry,
l'informatique, le
in
transport
informatics
et encore
and in
trop
transportation and other
long. Et
sectors
pour cette raison,
is huge. And for
je
that
veux
reason, I
créer
think
un système d'immigration
we should create an immigration
grande
system.
et agrandir notre système d'immigration, mais en
We
même
should
temps
extend
arrêter
it,
l'occasion quand il y a
but we
l'immigration
should
illégale.
also stop illegal
Merci,
immigration
Monsieur
as
Brown.
well.
Monsieur Poilievre?
Mr.
Je suis
Poilievre,
contre les
I'm
entrées
against
illégales,
illegal
mais en même temps, je
entry
suis pour
into our
l'immigration.
country, but I'm in
En fait,
favor of
j'aurais
immigration
pas
at the
une
same
femme sans
time. I
l'immigration.
wouldn't have a wife
Ma
without
femme,
immigration.
Anaïda,
My
est une
wife,
réfugiée de
Anita,
Venezuela qui
is
est
a
arrivée ici à
Venezuelan
Montréal.
refugee who came
Mais je
to
veux
settle
enlever
in
les
Montreal.
barrières qui
But I want
empêchent
to
nos
take away
immigrants
the
de réussir. Par
barriers
exemple,
that stop
il y a
our
beaucoup de
immigrants from
médecins qui viennent
succeeding.
ici
There are many
d'ailleurs
doctors and
et qui ne
physicians who
peuvent
come
pas
from other
travailler parce
countries
qu'ils ne
to
reçoivent pas
Canada. They can't
des
work
permis de travail
because they don't
des
have a
ordres
work permit.
professionnels. Donc, un gouvernement Poilievre va
I mean,
essayer
like,
de signer des ententes avec les provinces
how much
pour
fucking
encourager la reconnaissance
shit
des
that we end up doing to the global south, we like kind of owe those that we fucked over at the very least.
Give Canadians more plumbers, engineers, and physicians and workers we need. Mr. Charest now.
Je suis très favorable à
Well, I am
l'immigration.
very
C'est
in
une chose
favor
que
of
j'ai pratiquée
immigration.
lorsque
This is
j'étais Premier
something
ministre du
that
Québec.
I
On a
showed
signé
when
une
I
entente
was
avec la
Quebec
France
Premier. We signed
sur
an
la
agreement with
reconnaissance
France
des
on
qualifications
the
les plus
recognition
avancées
of
au monde.
qualifications
I fucking
of
love this guy.
employment in the
Fait aussi de
world,
manière
but
ordonnée.
immigration must be
Et dans le cas du
orderly
chemin
at the same
Roxham,
time.
on comprend
Now,
très bien que c'est
Roxham
des
Road
réfugiés. Mais il
is
faut
a place
renégocier
for
l'entente que nous avons avec les
refugees to enter, where we
Américains,
have to
cette entente
renegotiate our agreement
avec
with the
les
Americans
pays tiers sûrs, de
with
manière à ce que nous
safe
puissions
third
les
countries
accueillir
to
de
make sure that
manière
we're able
ordonnée.
to actually
Cela étant dit, pour
ensure that
l'avenir,
immigration is
il
orderly
faut
for the
faire
future.
du Canada
However, we have
le
to make
pays
Canada the
qui
country,
est
the
attractif
number
pour les
one
talents partout sur la
country
planète.
to attract
Et si nous le
talent from
réussissons,
across the
nous
planet. And if
serons
we
le
do
pays
that,
de
we will
l'avenir.
be the country
Merci, Monsieur
who
Charest.
holds the future in
Monsieur
its hands.
Aitchison.
Mr. Aitchison, over to you.
Le Canada est un pays incroyable.
Well, Canada
Nous
is an
attirons les
incredible
meilleurs et
country.
les plus
We
brillants du monde
attract the
entier.
most brilliant and
Nous
best
attirons
in
des
the
médecins,
world,
des ingénieurs, des
physicians,
scientifiques
engineers,
et
scientists,
d'autres travailleurs
and
qualifiés
other
du monde
qualified
entier.
workers from the whole
Les
world.
immigrants nous aident à créer des collectifs
Immigrants
et
help us
diversifier,
to
à faire
diversify
notre
our
économie et
communities,
à bâtir un
to
Canada
make our
meilleur.
country more prosperous.
This isn't nearly as fun as the fucking English leadership debate. That one was so much more fun.
Pour attirer des travailleurs
to
qualifiés,
attract qualified
éliminer les
workers,
retards dans le
and
traitement
to
des
Also didn't really help that it was also in
d'inviter les
time
meilleurs
it
et les
takes
plus brillants
to
du monde
in
entier.
Alberta. Alberta made it even more great.
The most talented in the world
Merci.
can come to
Le
Canada
débat
to
de
work.
4 minutes ouvert peut
The
commencer. Madame
4-minute
Lewis, je vous
open
invite à
debate
commencer.
starts. Miss Lewis, you have the floor.
Nos priorités doivent
priority
être la
must be
réunification familiale,
family reunification.
attirer
It must
les
be to
travailleurs
attract
qualifiés et
qualified
protéger les
workers
gens
and to
qui
protect
fuient
people
la
who are
persécution.
fleeing persecution
Nous devons
in the world.
faciliter
We must
l'accès au
facilitate
travail
access to
pour aider
work
les
to help
employeurs employeurs à trouver des employés.
Find workers for the positions they have.
Monsieur Charest?
Mr. Charest.
Il y a beaucoup à faire au niveau de l'immigration. La première chose à relever, c'est que le ministère actuel, il est dysfonctionnel. Les délais sont trop longs. Il y a des milliers de personnes qui attendent. Il y a des employeurs
I mean,
qui
yeah,
s'occupent de
the
la
liberal
incapables de les faire
fucking
venir
department
en
is fucking dysfunctional. He is right about that, but it's gonna be even fucking worse under conservative leadership. It's so fucking awful.
Qui sera décisif. Il faut recruter davantage d'étudiants étrangers également. Alors ça, pour nous, c'est un avantage. On l'a fait au Québec. Un étudiant qui vient au Québec est partiellement intégré. Il est diplômé par nos collèges, nos universités. On reconnaît ses talents et son diplôme. Et c'est la façon la plus rapide d'inclure et de recruter des nouveaux talents à la fois au Canada et au Québec.
S'il vous plaît, les applaudissements.
Please keep your applause for later.
Maintenant, chaque jour, je travaille fort pour agrandir notre parti vers le nouveau monde. Je veux créer un parti multiculturel, multiconfessionnel, mais il y a un problème.
Man, I miss the fucking Alberta Hogs. They were so much more fun. The Quebec Hogs are fucking boring, man.
Who's attacked our immigration system, Mr. Podiev said, it's important to use Anglo-Saxon vocabulary. How can he actually hope to expand our party when he uses that terminology? People want to build a bigger party, a party that can lead this country. That's not true, Mr. Brown.
Tout à fait rejeté ce monsieur King.
Rejected Mr. King.
J'ai déjà me prononcé contre lui, contre ses propos. Je l'ai dit ouvertement et constamment. Pour l'immigration, pour la diversité ouverte. Et c'est votre journal, Brampton, a dit que vous êtes en train d'essayer de diviser
Bitch, no, you're not.
diviser les
Don't fucking try and lie about that, man.
Une chose à une groupe, exactement le contraire à un autre groupe. Donc c'est la raison pour laquelle personne ne peut vous croire. Vous avez été trouvé coupable de violer la loi sur l'intégrité pour une raison parce que vous ne pouvez jamais dire la vérité. Et vous n'êtes pas en train de dire la vérité maintenant non plus.
Mr. Barber, you had your hand
S'il vous
up.
plaît, les applaudissements.
Please keep your applause for later. Mr. Barber.
Merci beaucoup. À samedi, mon ami et moi, nous allons à ma bistro favori à North Toronto.
My friend and I go to our favorite bistro.
Et la personne qui travaille
and there's the waiter there
dit à moi qu'il doit fermer le bistrot
that they have to
parce qu'il n'y a
close the
pas
bistro
des emplois.
because they can't find employees, they can't find staff.
Canada est un crisis des emplois. Nous avons besoin
Canada's immigration system
d'immigration
doesn't work.
légale.
We need legal immigration,
J'aimerais
quite
relancer,
simply.
pendant les 40
I'd
secondes
like
qui nous restent,
to
on parle beaucoup du
I honestly think Pierre is going to be getting the fucking candidacy. Even though he's just fucking dog shit. They're all fucking dog shit, but that's who I'm predicting to
we have to adjust the figures in terms of our
be the
ability
candidate,
to integrate
even though he's going to fucking lose again.
must mean integration into Canada. How do we do integration? Well, we do that through jobs, through the recognition of skills and qualifications. We do it through the language. We do it when families integrate into a community. Immigration must mean integration into society. And if Canada is able to do that, we'll have a foot.
Sécurité publique. Deuxième question sur le thème de la sécurité publique.
Public safety.
Récemment, plusieurs meurtres ont été associés aux Hells Angels. Nous savons tous que le crime organisé est un problème important allant du trafic de drogue ou trafic de personnes ou crimes violents. Comme Premier ministre, que feriez-vous pour combattre le crime organisé? Et je commencerai avec M. Patrick Brown.
You literally tackle fucking poverty and a lot of the other fucking struggles that the proletariat has. That's how you solve that problem.
The problem is that we need a prime minister who will protect our borders. Because if you look at the origins of drugs and firearms, it's from across the border. Last year, in Toronto, 84 people used contraband firearms in crime. The problems with our borders, and the current Prime Minister is doing nothing to deal with that issue. Mr. Aitchison, you have the floor.
I mean, you guys would do even less, to be honest with you.
beaucoup de coopération avec les
to
provinces
cooperate with the provinces on a grand scale
s'adresser à ce problème.
to address the problem, I think. Thank you, Mr.
Dr.
Aitchison.
Lewis?
Dr. Lewis.
Fuck?
Nous devons investir
We
les
must
ressources
invest
nécessaires
the
pour
necessary
réduire les
resources
crimes
to reduce
organisés
organized
qui
crime.
font de la contrebande d'armes et
They
feux
All,
et
all the
du
last
trafic
fucking
d'autres
major
crimes.
shootings
Trafficking
happened
people,
with an
La majorité des
AR-15. That's
victimes
fucking
du
nuts,
trafic
man.
humain au
victims
Canada
of
viennent
people
des
trafficking in
populations
Canada
des
come
plus
from the
vulnérables.
most vulnerable
Malheureusement, ce
populations,
sont surtout
unfortunately,
des femmes autochtones.
mainly
Ces
Aboriginal women.
Canadiens vulnérables
These are
doivent être
vulnerable
notre
Canadians, and
priorité.
they must have our priority. We
Merci,
must
Dr.
protect
Lewis.
them.
Monsieur Baber?
Mr. Baber,
Merci.
thank you very
J'ai
much.
pratiqué le droit pendant
I was
12
a
ans
lawyer for
avant
12 years
d'être élu.
before I
Les
was
lois
elected.
canadiennes sur la
Canadian
peine
laws
sont bizarres. Nous
are
laissons la
strange.
criminelle violente et liberté à criminalisation,
We
la santé mentale
give,
et la toxicomanie.
criminals far too
Nous devons
much
réformer
freedom. We
le
must
code criminel
reform
pour
the
aider
criminal
à
code
poursuivre et
to be
punir les
able to
vrais criminels organisés
prosecute
et violents.
organized crime and violent crime. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, the fucking justice system is horrible. You should be taking a rehabilitative approach instead of a fucking incarceration approach.
Of Canadians, be it protecting it against gangs, street gangs, or organized crime. The street gangs, as you know, are terrorizing our cities currently.
Wait, what?
Montreal, for example, a couple of years ago, we didn't have that crime in Montreal.
What?
Now it's across the city. It's happening on a daily basis.
I fucking love
in
this
broad
guy.
daylight, we have to take firm steps to deal with the street gangs in Quebec.
I have not heard anything about fucking street crime in fucking Ontario. That's fucking awesome, man.
Measure against organized crime. We also have to ban handguns. We have to stop the import of handguns. Mr. Poilievre, well, first of all, we have to strengthen our border. According to Toronto Police, 80% of weapons used in crime don't come from Canada, but they come from the US, and they're brought in here illegally across the border. So we have to monitor more closely imports into Canada. I'm against Justin Trudeau's attempts to reduce sentences for criminals using weapons in violent armed crime. That approach allows criminals to go back onto the streets and to continue to terrorize.
But that's not even true, though.
We have to protect our border, and we also have to put real criminals behind bars to protect Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Poilievre.
Fuck, I love watching conservatives so much. They're so fucking funny.
I'd like to add, it's important to have a discussion on bail. In Brampton 2 years ago, there was a criminal who was freed 5 times. And 5 times they broke the law against, and the last time they were freed, they killed their partner, and that's the reality of our current justice system.
Well, our current justice system enforces fucking revenge instead of justice.
Change that, and that must be a priority. It's my priority, Dr. Lewis.
And it fucking makes the people more violent when they're fucking thrown in there, so of course that's gonna happen.
We must look at the issue of guns being trafficked across the border. I want to respect gun owners who respect the law, of course. But the problem at the border is very, very serious. It's serious for the safety and security of this country, Mr. Poilievre. Mr. Brown, you have no credibility on law and order. You were found guilty of having broken the integrity rules. You've said that the money you used to buy your $2 million home came from your family. But after investigation, we now know that this money came from someone that was a candidate for you.
d'où proviennent $375 milliards Monsieur Brown. Oups. Vous avez pensé que c'était de votre famille, mais soudainement, vous avez constaté pendant l'enquête que non, c'est venu d'un candidat. Personne ne va vous croire quand vous dites que vous êtes pour la loi et l'ordre, quand vous étiez trouvé coupable d'avoir brisé la loi en cachant ce paiement. C'est exactement comme Justin Trudeau qui a caché les cadeaux et qui a brisé les lois de l'éthique.
Who hides the gifts people give to him as well, and the donations people give to him. Mr. Brown.
La seule personne ici qui a cassé la loi avec l'élection du Canada est M. Poilievre. Et en même temps,
I mean, I'm sure that they've all broken the law, though.
I won't take any lessons from Mr. Poilievre.
Why not? You could actually probably win if you actually took his advice.
Secret deals. It's much easier for Poilievre to attack other conservatives. That's his policy. That's his approach, really, isn't it?
D'abord, la question, M. Fortin, à ma connaissance, c'est sur la sécurité publique.
The issue is about public safety, right, Mr. Fortin? Just wanted to remind you of that fact. Yes, you're quite right, says Ms. Lewis. You're quite right, Mr. Chalet.
Peut-être que M. Poilievre a mal entendu.
Perhaps Mr. Poilievre misunderstood. I'll tell you what I would do. I would increase sentences for those attacking police officers, ambulance workers. I want to deal with gangs. I want to deal with hate crimes. I want to help women who are victims of violence. I'll make sure that coercion becomes a criminal act. $100 million for groups supporting women, and I want to talk or work with Senator Boisvenu as well on his initiative. It's a bit ironic to hear Mr. Poilievre talk about law and order. He's the one who's supporting.
He's so fucking crazy, and I love him.
Remember that.
Do you think a bunch of hogs are gonna stop cheering?
Please, we're wasting time. Please be quiet. Can I answer that question, please?
On va malheureusement devoir sauter à la au
troisième
thème sur l'inflation.
L'inflation
ravage l'économie canadienne. Évidemment, les taux d'intérêt jouent beaucoup pour contrôler l'inflation, mais que feriez-vous pour soulager les familles canadiennes qui souffrent de l'augmentation du prix des aliments, du prix de l'essence ou encore du prix du logement? Monsieur Poilievre, je t'invite à commencer.
I'll come over and cut taxes for corporations, the ones that are causing the problems. Hell yeah, brother.
Raising inflation, taxes raise prices, we have to eliminate the deficit, and we have to stop printing money, which created inflation in the first place. We also have to eliminate the carbon tax, which increases the price of gas for all Canadians. We also have to suspend all taxes on gas for the summer because families are in crisis and are able to pay their bills, make ends meet by getting rid of those taxes and stopping printing money.
But the carbon tax isn't the problem, though.
To buy food, housing,
the problem is all the fucking wealth hoarding going on at the top.
A strong purchasing power. Mr. Shahe, thank you. Well, look,
l'inflation actuellement
is at 6.8%.
Une augmentation plus rapide que les salaires.
It's rising more quickly than wages. It's a major issue for families, especially low-income families. There are two things that have to be done here. We have to reduce government spending, which fuels inflation.
Wait, what? Why do you want to defund like important fucking services, my guy?
The recession is to reduce taxes to make sure that middle-class families and low-income families are able to actually keep more of their income. This allowed Quebec to emerge from the recession stronger than any other country in the world. Mr. Poilievre is no longer talking about firing the governor of the Bank of Canada. He's no longer talking about that tonight. At least that's one thing. Mr. Agenson, there's no miracle solution to deal
Vous
with
ne
inflation.
pouvez pas congédier un
You
bureaucrate
can't
et à la faire
fire
disparaître.
bureaucrats.
Vous ne pouvez pas l'arrêter avec une
You can't stop
crypto-monnaie.
it with
C'est un vrai défi
cryptocurrency.
et
It's a
c'est la
real challenge.
nécessité, une vraie
And
solution.
that means we need real
Nous allons
solutions to
supprimer
deal
la
with
taxe
it.
sur le
We
carbone.
would get
Vous
rid of the
économiserez
carbon
de
tax.
l'argent sur le carburant,
We
le
would
chauffage.
save money on
I love how they're
heating
just
and
focusing on the
gas.
fucking carbon tax. It's
We
fucking
will-
great.
We would get rid of
et créerait des
supply
nouvelles
management. That
possibilités pour
means
les
that you would save money on
Canadiens.
your groceries to create new opportunities for Canadian agriculture as well. Dr. Lewis, over to you.
L'inflation au Canada a été
Inflation in
exacerbée
Canada
par
has been
des
exacerbated
problèmes avec la chaîne
by
de
problems in
approvisionnement
the supply
et
chain,
la taxe sur le carbone,
as well as by the carbon
qui
tax.
ont été causés par le
I love how she just had to add in the
libéral.
carbon tax.
Je vais éliminer
I mean, all of my other opponents are adding the carbon tax, so I might as well too, right?
Eliminate the carbon tax because it makes
les
life
Canadiens.
less affordable for
Monsieur
Canadians.
Poilievre
Mr.
faveur
Poilievre
de
is
l'argent
in
numérique
favor
pour
of
se protéger contre
cryptocurrency
l'inflation.
protection
mean-
against inflation. I don't agree with
I
him.
mean, whenever someone's a fucking crypto bro, especially in politics, that should be a red flag.
Absolutely
Monsieur
wrong.
Baber. S'il vous plaît, Monsieur Baber.
Mr. Baber,
Merci.
thank you.
Il est important de reconnaître
It
la
is
cause de
important
cette
to
inflation.
recognize
Ce n'est pas
what's causing
seulement
the
600
inflation.
milliards de dollars que nous
And
avons
it's not
imprimés
just
ou
the
empruntés
600
ces dernières années.
million
Ce sont
that
les
we
confinements
borrowed or
qui
printed
ont
last
formé
year.
notre économie.
It is
On a arrêté la
the
chaîne
foundations of our
d'approvisionnement mondial à
The
plusieurs
world
reprises
supply
et la
chain was
revoltée de
stopped a
notre
number of
économie
times,
ne peut satisfaire les
and
demandes. La meilleure chose que
we
nous
couldn't
puissions
meet demand in
faire
our own
pour
economy.
combattre
The only thing we can do
l'inflation
to
est de
fight
donner au marché
inflation
une stabilité.
is to
Je ne permettrai
bring
pas jamais
stability to the
un arrêt de
markets. I
l'économie
would
ou
never
un
allow the
confinement.
economy to
Je
stop.
vais
I would never go
rétablir
to
la discipline
lockdown.
au
I would
gouvernement.
restore
Je vais
Wait,
abolir
what?
le
discipline within the
carbone.
government.
But
Sur
the
le
lockdowns
carbone,
literally
sur le
helped
carbone,
for
je
wave
vais
1,
réduire
though.
les
The
impôts sur
fuck?
le revenu.
And reduce income
Merci.
taxes.
J'ai déjà démontré comment lutter
Mr.
contre
Brown,
l'inflation à
I've
Brampton.
already
Je
shown
suis
how
fier
to
que
fight
j'ai,
inflation
gelé
in
les impôts,
Brampton.
équilibré
I
et
froze
bougé.
taxes,
Et en
I
même temps, j'ai
balanced the
appuyé
budget,
plus
and
que,
at the same time,
plus de nouveaux
I
logements
supported
que toute l'autre ville dans
more new
l'Ontario.
housing than
30
any
000
other town in
nouveaux,
Ontario.
logements.
30,000 new
How many homeless people are still in Brampton, though?
and
That's the main question.
15,000 secondary housing
Je veux
units.
ajouter sérieusement comme
I would add,
Leslie Lewis
There's probably a decent amount of people still fucking homeless in Brampton.
that
I
when Pierre
mean, you can build
says that
houses, but you have to fucking fill them.
eliminate inflation
si les parents et les grands-parents
using
écoutaient
Bitcoin,
Action à vie,
that's
ils
very
perdent,
odd. This
ils
is
perdent
how
leurs finances.
you get your grandparents to lose their life
Je
savings.
ne comprends qu'est-ce qu'ils pensent.
I don't understand what he's thinking.
Justement, on rentre dans le débat à 6.
What is thinking? Obviously something that you don't do.
Mr. Poilievre, you start.
C'est vrai parce que lui, il supporte.
Well, of course
c'est
he
pas
doesn't
ça que j'ai dit.
understand.
Je veux
First
que
of
les
all,
gens
that's
aient
not
la
what I
liberté de
said.
prendre leur
I
propre
want people to
décision
have the freedom to make
Mais
their own investment
vous, Monsieur
decisions. But
vous avez dit
you,
que vous
Mr.
étiez
Brown,
contre
you
la taxe
said that
carbone.
you were
Mais après
against the
ça, vous
carbon
êtes devenu
tax. But
pour
after
la
that,
taxe
you became
carbone quand vous êtes devenu
pro-carbon
le chef du
tax once you
Parti
became
conservateur de l'Ontario.
leader of the
Et ici,
Ontario
au Québec,
Conservative Party.
l'homme qui a causé la
And
plus grande
in Quebec,
inflation,
the
c'est
man
Jean
who
Charest. C'est
brought
le
us the
politicien
most
le plus
inflation is Jean
inflationniste.
Charest,
Oui, c'est vrai.
the most inflationary of politicians. And this is absolutely
Oui,
true.
vous allez l'entendre. Il a
And
augmenté,
you'll
il
hear
a
him.
augmenté le
He
taxe de vente.
increased
Il a
sales
augmenté le
tax.
taxe
He
de l'essence. Il a
increased
mis en
gas
place une taxe de
taxes.
carbone.
He
Il a
put
mis
in
en place
place a
une taxe
carbon
sur la
tax.
santé.
He put in place a
C'est
health
son bilan.
tax.
C'est
That
son
is
bilan.
his record.
Lorsque
That is his
j'étais
very
en
own
train de
record.
couper
Awesome.
les
When
taxes
I
avec le
was
gouvernement
cutting
Harper, y
taxes
compris
with the
réduire
Harper
I love
taxe
hogs
de
going
vente.
at each
and
other.
Monsieur
that
It's
included
fucking
reducing
great.
sales tax.
de
Mr. Charest
l'augmenter
was
une fois
actually
après l'autre. Et en
increasing one
totalité,
tax
les
after
taxes sur
another.
ici au Québec ont augmenté de
And
30%
taxes in
lorsqu'il
Quebec
était
increased
chef.
by 30%
Je me demande si
when
M.
he was at the
Charest
helm.
et maintenant il regrette les augmentations de taxes qu'il a imposées
Mr.
sur
Brown.
les Québécois. Est-ce que vous le regrettez, M. Charest, oui ou non?
Mr. Brown?
Pierre,
Oui ou non?
le journaliste Brian Lilly,
The journalist
respecté,
Brian Lilly, who is
il
well
dit
respected, affected.
dans la semaine dernière, dans un article, que Pierre change son position sur les taxes de carbone 5 fois.
5 times on the carbon tax. He has changed position 5 times.
I mean, what hasn't he flipped on though? Like, it's not surprising that he's even flopped on that.
Quand l'autre personne parle, je veux ajouter qu'est-ce que Pierre ne comprend pas, et son position sur Bitcoin est la même position d'El Salvador.
El Salvador is the same position as El Salvador's.
40% de leurs finances.
Okay, that was actually kind of funny.
Les Canadiens qui nous écoutent à la maison, eux paient leur prix d'essence $2 le litre. Pourtant, on est la troisième plus grande réserve de pétrole au Canada. Ah, wow, excusez-moi. Comment se fait-il qu'on est dans cette situation-là et que comptez-vous faire pour la changer?
So what are you going to do to change this?
I mean, doesn't that just show that the fucking gas and oil industry is like just fucking mad about, you know, not making as much money, as well as not having a sustainable and stable fucking source of energy? Like, they should be fucking going on from moving on from gas and oil. And also invest into fucking high-speed rail. Oh, that'd be so fucking awesome.
I wonder whether Mr. Poilievre would keep those agreements in place. Maybe he's going to skirt around the issue as he did around the abortion issue.
S'il vous plaît.
I mean, we already know he's fucking pro-life, so that doesn't even matter, though.
When I asked if you were in favor of tax increases, well, that's what you did in Quebec. You increased sales tax twice. You increased the gas tax. You increased the carbon tax. You created a health tax. A health tax that didn't even help the healthcare system, that led to the longest waiting lists in emergency rooms ever.
C'est ça votre bilan.
On va rendre ça très facile parce que je pense que M. Poilievre est mal informé par ses conseillers. La réalité, aller dans les comptes publics, au moment où j'ai quitté le gouvernement, on payait $1 milliard de moins en impôts par année, tout compris au Québec. Le revenu disponible a augmenté au Québec.
I honestly doubt that, brother. There's no shot.
Quebec's credit rating went up 3 times. That is the truth. That is reality.
Fuck, I love how easily conservatives get derailed. It's so fucking funny.
Taking too much time, and we'll have to cut into the debating time. So please do remain silent for the remaining exchange. Let's move to health. The Canada Health Act guarantees health transfers to the provinces.
La pandémie a mis en lumière des lacunes de notre système de santé. Certaines provinces envisagent maintenant un nouveau modèle de prestation dans lequel le privé a davantage.
Oh, 100% it did.
En tant que Premier ministre, appliquerez-vous pleinement la loi canadienne sur la santé ou est-ce que vous allez accorder une latitude aux provinces? Monsieur Baber, à vous de commencer.
Mr. Baber.
He wouldn't implement it because he's a little bitch, that's why. Because apparently Canadians don't deserve better healthcare services.
With the most failings in the world, it's among the worst in the OCDE. With an aging population, it's going to need a lot of capital. We can look at more healthcare delivery options without changing the health insurance system and by respecting the principles set out in the Canada Health Act. As Prime Minister, I would invest and commit federal money to this. This is something I have talked about with the provinces. Mr. Aitchison.
Nous ne devons pas avoir peur de débat. Mais nous devons examiner d'autres modèles dans le monde comme le modèle néerlandais.
Look at other models like the one in the Netherlands and improve our health.
Wait, why the Netherlands? What the fuck?
The federal government pays 50%.
Like, granted, yes, the Netherlands probably does have better healthcare services than we do, but like, fucking Norway or Sweden should be like the baseline.
There are no easy answers.
Who the fuck
We
says
will
the
discuss
Netherlands?
provinces and work with them to improve our healthcare system. Thank you.
Merci, M.
Mr.
Fortin. Moi,
Charest.
j'ai fait une politique
Thank you, Mr.
La dernière
Fortin.
entente
I've
de substance
formulated a
qui a été
policy
négociée
on
avec le
this, and the
gouvernement
last
fédéral pour le Québec, ça a été en
substantive
2004 avec le
agreement
Conseil de
negotiated
fédération.
with
Et
the
juste
federal
pour
government
l'histoire,
was in
cette
2004
entente-là
with the
qui
Council of the
respecte
Federation.
totalement les
That
compétences du
agreement
Québec, qui prévoit
fully
le
respects all
fédéralisme
areas of
symétrique
Quebec
pour la
jurisdiction,
première fois
and
et une
it
augmentation de
provides
6%
for
par année
asymmetric
avait
federalism.
été
There's an
approuvé
increase of
par Stephen
6%
Harper.
a year,
Il
and
était
it was
chef
approved
d'opposition à
by
l'époque.
Stephen
Je
Harper,
l'avais
who was
consulté pour qu'il soutienne
leader of the
l'entente.
opposition at
Moi,
the time, but
j'ouvre
I
la loi
consulted
canadienne
him
pour la
because I
santé.
wanted him
Je
to
permets aux
support
Are they
provinces
still
d'innover.
sucking off Stephen
Et au
Harper?
secteur privé
Stephen Harper was
contribuer
dog shit, man.
fonctionner le système de soins de santé
to
plus
making the
efficacement
healthcare
avec un
system work
payeur
more
unique.
effectively
Et
with
je mets
a
10
single
milliards de dollars dans les
payer.
infrastructures pour la santé,
I would
entre
put
autres,
10
et avec
billion
une
into
reconnaissance
health
des qualifications
in full
professionnelles pour
and
les
fully
étrangers.
recognize foreign qualifications for people who have
Le
qualified
pandémie
abroad.
Hey, how's it going?
que le système de soins de
Mr. Brown,
santé
the
est
pandemic
brisé
showed
dans
us
notre
that the
pays.
healthcare system
Quand
in
la
this country
pandémie
is
a
broken.
commencé,
When the pandemic
91%
began,
de lits dans l'hôpital est occupé.
91%
Dans les États-Unis, c'est seulement
of hospital beds were
63%.
occupied. In the
Et
US, it was
c'est
only
pourquoi
63%.
j'ai appuyé de l'augmentation de le transfert aux provinces pour la santé, mais en même temps,
But at the same time,
je n'appuie pas un système privé.
I don't
Je pense que la
support
meilleure façon
a private system.
d'aider
I
la
believe that
province
the
est
best
de
way of
répondre
helping the
avec ce
provinces
qu'il
is
est
to
demandé, et ça
respond
c'est une
by giving
augmentation
them
de
what
le
they're
transfert
asking for,
pour la
and that
province et de
is
respecter
increased
l'autonomie de la province.
increased health transfers.
He's actually not even wrong about that, though.
Stable pour notre système de santé,
Stable
c'est ce que nous
funding for
avons
the healthcare
livré
system
quand j'ai
is
fait
what we
partie du
delivered when I
gouvernement
was part
Harper
of the
pendant
Harper government
presque 10 ans.
for almost 10 years.
Awesome phrase to frame to freeze on.
Healthcare system is working very badly. We're paying a lot of
I wish
money
this was
because
as
there's a
fun as the
capacity
one that
issue.
happened in
We need
Alberta.
to have the courage to change the system and to innovate. I would allow the private sector to participate, for example, where clinics could carry out knee operations and hip operations in agreement with the federal government, could conduct diagnoses. This would free up beds in hospitals. And if we did that, our healthcare system would have worked much better during the COVID system, and there would have been fewer restrictions needed than those that had to be imposed.
Je veux ajouter que Brampton est l'une des seules grandes villes dans le pays où il y a une plupart un mandate de vaccination. Et c'est ça, c'est la raison que le syndicat de Brampton appuie mon chefferie parce que j'ai protégé leur droit d'avoir un choix personnel pour la santé. À le même temps, quand nous sommes dans cette bataille sur les droits canadiens, Pierre Poilievre, caché dans son
Weren't
cave,
people in Brampton like kind of pissed about that though?
mais je veux dire, il a écrit 3000 tweets pendant 7 ans.
Sends out 3,000 tweets and not a single
Il
time
a avancé l'argument contre le mandat de vaccination. Il a seulement commencé quand le chefferie commençait.
Monsieur Poilievre, et
He
ensuite
started talking about it when the leadership race began. That's
dans
when
les
he
journaux
started.
disant que les passeports
Caché dans votre cave.
I've been
passeports
quoted in the
vaccinaux devraient
newspapers
élargir.
as saying
Monsieur Charest,
that
vous faites
vaccine
volte-face. Quand vous étiez Premier ministre, vous avez dit à Mario Dumont qui proposait le privé en santé, vous avez brandi une carte de crédit en avertissant les Québécois qu'ils allaient devoir payer pour la santé si c'était privé. Maintenant, vous essayez de
The private sector should stay the fuck out of my healthcare.
Quand vous étiez le Premier ministre du Québec, la période d'attente pour les salles d'urgence ont augmenté de 16 heures à 20 heures. C'est ça votre vrai bilan en santé, Jean Charest.
16 hours to 20 hours. That is your record on health, Mr. Charest.
Il parle d'une affaire qui remonte à quoi, il
First
y a
of all,
15 ans
Mr.
environ?
Poilievre
Alors,
is talking
welcome to
about
the new
15
world.
years ago.
Unreal, they are accusing each other of not privatizing healthcare. I know, it's fucking awesome. I fucking love watching hogs rip each other apart. It's so fucking funny.
Found that Quebec ranked second in Canada for waiting times, Mr. Fortin. We were second. So, Mr. Poilievre, there again, I don't know who compiles your data. Maybe you need new staff.
On va au dossier du thème des langues
But like,
officielles.
even if they do try and privatize healthcare, a vast majority of Canadians would be fucking pissed about that. Because like, that's the one thing that we have over America that's actually good. And like, no one wants that our fucking system to be as dog shit as America's healthcare system.
Doivent avoir des compétences dans les deux langues officielles pour assumer leurs fonctions. Monsieur Brown, à vous la parole.
Je pense que c'est important de parler de
In fact, I actually think it's pretty fucking bad compared to like European nations, or like really anywhere else. Like, we have like the bare minimum and that's it. We should be expanding upon it and providing more funding to it. Like, we should be expanding that to physiotherapy, reading glasses, prescription drugs, mental health services, like dental too. Like, why not? Just the full fucking Bernie plan.
So my question to Mr. Poilievre and to other candidates is this: why?
Francophone ou
Dr. Lewis, regardless of whether you're francophone or anglophone, the most qualified person should get the job. But I do believe that that person should make a commitment to learn both official languages or the other official language. It is very important to be able to communicate with all Canadians.
Apprendre le français,
In my view,
c'est une belle expérience.
That covers glasses and public insurance. I mean, it should be covered for everyone though. And the fact that it's not is just silly to me.
I would maintain both official languages in all regions of this country. But I do agree with Mr. Brown that, like Bill 21,
était mauvaise.
Bill 96 is a bad bill. Politics of fear and anger should not prevail in this country. I will make everything.
And like, that's also only in Quebec though. You don't think motherfuckers in Saskatchewan don't want that? Of course they do.
Well, there's one thing I'd like to say first. French, and we're in Quebec right now. French, protecting French is a sacred duty of our elected officials. Promoting it and ensuring its survival is a sacred duty. In the highest positions of the country, because that's your question, those who take on these high positions must be, in my view, bilingual and able at least to communicate in both languages. That reflects who we are. And I find it unfortunate that in Canada we don't speak enough of how this enriches us. The fact of having French as an official language gives Canada tremendous visibility in the world. That is also something we need to protect.
Wait, when are we fucking visible?
Le Charte canadienne des droits et libertés garantit que l'anglais et le français sont langues officielles du Canada et ont un statut égal. Ce que le gouvernement Legault fait avec les projets de loi 96 est inacceptable. Mais essaie de rechercher le bureau des médecins parce qu'il veut rendre la communication plus facile avec ses paysiens.
What he should be doing is making communication with other people easier.
Téléphone de gens. Le Parti conservateur doit être clair que nous allons défendre les Québécois et que nous n'allons pas tolérer ces comportements. Je vais utiliser tous les moyens légaux au gouvernement fédéral de défendre les droits de tous les Canadiens, incluant les Québécois.
Merci, Monsieur Poilievre.
La protection de la langue française me tient énormément à cœur. Mon arrière-grand-père était allé directement de la France en Saskatchewan, ce qui allait devenir un village à France-Assois, Léoville. Quand j'ai été né à
Calgary,
when
mon
I was
père
born in
m'a dit
Calgary,
que si
my
j'étais
father
capable
told me
de rédiger mes vœux de Noël en français, le Père Noël allait être beaucoup plus généreux.
that if I was able to write my Christmas list in
Donc,
French,
je veux protéger
Santa would
la
be much more
langage. C'est la
generous.
raison
So
pour laquelle ma fille
I
assiste à une
commit
garderie
to
française.
protect the
Et
French
c'est comme
language.
ça
That's
que
why
je
my
vais
kid
promouvoir la
goes to
langage,
a
la langue
French
française partout au
language
pays,
daycare.
y
I
compris
will
au Québec,
promote and
mais
protect
ailleurs
French
aussi.
and
Parce que
English
les
across
Canadiens
the
ont le
country
droit de recevoir
because Canadians
tous
have
les
the
services
right
du
to
gouvernement
get
fédéral
service
dans
from
les
the
deux langues
federal government
officielles
in
et
both
je vais les
official
protéger
languages,
en
and
tant
I'll
que Premier
protect them
ministre.
as Prime
J'ouvre
Minister. Thank
maintenant
you.
le débat.
I'll now open
I
up
mean,
the debate.
isn't it like already covered though? Like,
Repeat the question. The question was on the appointment of
when
senior
is fucking
officials to
dumbass
major
Trudeau
positions in the country. Should
like
they be
threaten
bilingual? Mr. Brown, if you're
fucking
Prime Minister, would you
like
appoint
French
only
sovereignty or
bilingual
some
people to these
bullshit like
positions?
that?
C'est important de
Well, I think it's
essayer de
important
trouver des personnes bilingues pour
to
cette position
find a bilingual
importante.
person for these important positions in the
Et c'est
country.
important de protéger
It's
la langue
important
française
to
dans
protect
tout
the
côté de
French
notre pays. C'est
language
pourquoi,
across the
quand j'étais
country
chef
as
du
well.
Parti
That's
conservateur de
why, when
l'Ontario,
I
j'ai
was
appuyé le
leader of the
projet
Ontario
pour créer
Conservative
une
Party, I
université de langue
supported a
française
bill
parce
to
que
create a French language
je veux
university
protéger la langue
because
française
I want to
dans
protect
l'Ontario.
French in Ontario.
Mais je veux
That was a
ajouter
priority for
que
me.
l'un des problèmes maintenant est
One of
que
the
tu as des
problems we
gens
have
qui parlent
now
deux langues dans le Canada. Ils prennent une position à Québec et une autre position dans
there are
le
people who
Canada
speak
anglais.
both
Par
languages and
exemple,
they have
Pierre
one
Poilievre
position in English Canada and one position in French Canada.
est
In
pour la loi
Quebec,
21, mais dans le Canada,
Pierre
il est
Poilievre is in
contre.
favor of Bill 21, but in English Canada he's against it.
Dans Québec, ici à
He's in
Québec,
favor of
il est
increasing the
pour,
number of
mais dans
seats
le
here in
Canada anglais,
Quebec.
il
When
est
he's speaking to
contre.
English
Il
Canadians,
change
he's
son
against it.
position
He changes his position
dans les différentes
based on
provinces.
who he's speaking to and where he is.
I mean, literally everyone does that though.
I came out against
Unless
Bill
you're like,
21 here in Quebec, and I came out against
unless you're like fucking true to yourself.
my country as well. I'm against Bill 21. I'd vote against it. If I was member of the National Assembly, I would vote against it if I was if I was Prime Minister. That's the question. That's the question. Will you let me answer, please? If this bill was tabled in the House of Commons, I would vote against it. That's not the question. That's not the question. You change your position. You flip-flop. I came out against the bill across the country, in all parts of the country, and I hope that Quebec will not adopt this legislation. I'm in favor of freedom of speech, freedom of religion across the country.
Bitch, no, you're not.
Let's bring you back to the debate in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada. There are targets for Francophone immigration, but we never reach them. How can we actually reach those goals, those targets? Well, it all comes down to attracting people and how to do that. Jobs, integrating people into the community, recognizing qualifications, French language students who come to Canada. There are about 12,000 of them who come to Quebec on a yearly basis, and they pay tuition fees which are very, very reasonable. And I created a program in Quebec to allow these students to become citizens very, very quickly. We shouldn't allow Mr. Poilievre to get away with what he's saying. Bilingualism means that you say the same thing in English and in French, no matter where you are. That's what I've been doing, says Mr. Poilievre. My question for Mr. Poilievre is the following. He said in Quebec that if Bill 21, he said this in French, came before the Supreme Court, the government wouldn't intervene. I'm sorry, he didn't say the same thing to English Canadians. Are you bilingual or not? Tell us, Mr. Poilievre.
Mr. Charest, c'est ce que vous avez dit ici au Québec par rapport à ça. Vous avez dit, ce n'est pas moi qui vais courir avec des poursuites devant les tribunaux.
Of course he has to be bilingual.
Alors vous avez dit que vous étiez contre aller en cours.
We saw that like 2 weeks ago, and it was really fucking funny.
Answer the question. You said you wouldn't tackle it in the courts. So that's what you said in French here in Quebec. Ms. Lewis,
awesome.
Thank you very much. Well, language is very, very important for Quebec and Quebecers.
I love how conservatives get mad over like the smallest things. It's so funny.
To learn French and to improve my French, and I will do immersion in French. I want to speak to Quebecers to know what's important for them. What are your priorities? Thank you.
Mr. Baber?
Mr. Baber.
Mon gouvernement fédéral
Well,
va
my
défendre les Canadiens
government
contre la loi
would defend
21. Il est
Canadians
inacceptable que les
against
Canadiens
Bill
et
21.
Canadiens
It's
sont
unacceptable
obligés
for
de
Canadians
choisir
to be
entre leurs
required
valeurs.
to choose.
Le débat est terminé.
The
4
debate's
minutes.
over. The 4 minutes are up.
Maintenant, on passe à la question 6.
Sixth question now.
Commerce et chaîne d'approvisionnement.
Trade
La
and
pandémie a mis
supply
en relief
chains.
la
The
vulnérabilité
pandemic
de nos chaînes
highlighted
d'approvisionnement
the
à travers le
vulnerability
monde.
of our
Nous avons vu la
supply
dépendance
chains
que le
across the
Canada a
world.
par
We
rapport à
saw
différents
that
fournisseurs
Canada
internationaux,
is dependent
notamment
on
en Chine,
various
même
international
lorsqu'il s'agit
suppliers,
de
including
questions de
those
sécurité
in
nationale, par exemple,
China,
comme on a
even
vu
when it comes
avec
to
des équipements
an
et
issue of
matériel de
national
santé publique.
security, PPE, for
Comment,
example.
comme Premier
Wait,
ministre,
what?
Prime Minister,
comptez-vous
China
vous
literally
appuyer
fucking made a shit ton of PPE and like was pumping it out.
Et la
supply
parole est à
chains.
Monsieur Chesson pour
Mr.
débuter.
Aitchison will start us off.
Je pense que c'est nécessaire pour,
Well, I think that we need to
équilibrer le
balance
budget pour que
our
nous puissions
budget
commencer à rembourser la dette
so we can start to pay
et
down our
réduire
debt
les impôts des
and so that we can
Canadiens.
reduce Canadian taxes.
Régler notre crise du
We have
logement
to
et
deal with the housing
mettre
crisis.
I think a lot of
as well.
conservatives don't
We had
think
to put an end to exclusion zones, so we have to work with
Yeah, no, I
cities,
completely agree.
on health, and we have to build more houses as well.
Soutenir nos métiers
We have to support
spécialisés
our
et nous assurer que nous
specialized
ayons
trades, and we
les
have to
travailleurs
make
dont
sure
nous
that we
avons
have the
besoin
workers
pour
But like,
that we need
un Canada
to be fair, like they are also conservatives. They're like some of the stupidest people in the
It's on supply chains, the question
that actually have like fucking any staying
This is a
power.
very, very important topic for our economic
I mean, you could
future.
argue
We
like the
depend
PPC,
on
but like
trade,
they're a fucking joke party
for
anyways. It's
our
like voting for the
GDP is
fucking
based on
rhinos.
Trade, supply chains are very, very important for us in the car sector, the auto sector, in aeronautics as well, in transportation, in recreational vehicles as well. These have to be secured. What does it mean? It means that we have to avoid being too dependent on one specific country, and we should also make sure that we have enough of our own
But like when it does come to like the bilingual thing, like the only thing that I can actually think of that hasn't applied to was the one indigenous lady that the liberals pushed to get to as like I think she's in indigenous affairs or something, but like
we must be self-sufficient. We must create.
That was more like a reaction to the
here at home.
the riots that happened. Few of the conservatives managed to gain power in once in a while. Governor General, yeah. Yeah, like especially like provincially as well. Like look at Jason Kenney for example, and how like dog shit he is. Granted, I think he is gonna lose to the NDP, but like he's fucking awful. And like last week's Ontario's leader debate, like I have no idea how Doug Ford managed to get in power. Like he literally made the fucking liberal guy look like a fucking socialist, and it was. I don't even know how he managed to do that.
Government interference in the Canadian economy. Mr. Poilievre, but it's bureaucracy, red tape, and taxes which are undermining our supply chains. We're 35th out of 36 OECD countries in terms of the time it takes to get a building permit. At the same time, we have C-69, which prevents the production of energy here in Canada.
His name was Del Duca, that's what his name was.
I want to get rid of that.
No, Del Duca is also pretty shit, but like Ontarians deserve a better fucking premier than Doug Ford. At least his fucking brother was like actually kind of fun though.
Of oil to replace all the oil we import from other countries, especially from dictatorships. I want to do that over 5 years. Mr. Brown. Well, the pandemic has shown that Canada didn't have enough capacity to produce its own essential goods, and that begs the question why we don't have that capacity. Why over the past 20 years have we lost
Et l'une des raisons est à cause du niveau de l'impôt. C'est important d'avoir un pays compétitif. C'est important de
Wait, what? That's not the reason why at all. Comes from automation and moving those companies to the global south to exploit the labor of the global south because it's more profitable.
Would you like to add something,
That's
Mr.
why the
Shizano?
fucking manufacturing jobs have been disappearing.
Supply chains. I was talking about our dependency on China. The manufacturing sector here in Canada has been in decline for the past 3 decades. Wages are stagnating. What should we do to breathe new life into that sector? How can we actually be less dependent on supply chains? Well, first of all, the manufacturing sector
Okay, so like the biggest thing that they could possibly do, which I honestly don't think they'll do, is investing into like green fucking energy and having those jobs be unionized, as well as, you know, have like actually making them produce like the shit that they need. Like, I honestly don't think that'll happen. That's just wishful thinking, but like that's one way to revitalize it, even if temporary. But it ultimately won't fucking matter because they won't win. I honestly don't think they'll win, and they don't give a shit about Canadians either way. So
sector in Quebec is in better health than in the rest of Canada, and that's because of the hard work.
Okay, so their solution for climate change is investing in gas and oil. Gas and oil gets lobby is well served. This is true. It makes no fucking sense. Like what they should be doing is investing in green energy and nuclear, and investing into public infrastructure via public transit, and like having awesome fucking high-speed rails like fucking China or Japan has. Or even I'd be okay with even what Europe has. Like as well as like fucking taxing the top 100 corporations for 75% of the pollutants.
He wasn't there.
That's the way that they should go about it, but you know, they love taking money from big oil. Exxon money is pretty mint.
The labor mobility agreement as well. That's going to change. The second thing I would just say is the following. Our supply chains were affected during the blockade. There were thousands of Canadians who lost their jobs. The jobs, they were laid off because people blocked the borders. I would pass legislation which would give powers to the police to stop that and to prevent that. And people like Mr. Poilier, who might be tempted to support these types of people, would find themselves...
Yeah, in the US, and the corporate tax rate in Canada is lower than the US. I know, it's fucking crazy.
But Ms. Lewis was first. Ms. Lewis...
They should be taxed out the ass, and all that funding should be going back into the public sphere to try and make the lives of the Canadian proletariat even better. Or at the very least, have a fucking temporary UBI system in place.
LNG products would allow us to replace Russian oil in Europe. At the same time, we could repatriate resources to Quebec, and we could create jobs as well. Mr. Poilier, Mr. Charest claims to be in favor of law and order. Mr. Charest, I remember the Charbonneau Commission. Remember that? I remember it well.
Et les Québécois se souviennent aussi.
Les
camionneurs n'ont aucune leçon à prendre de vous par rapport à la loi et l'ordre. Mais les gens n'ont rien à apprendre par rapport...
You shouldn't be lecturing other people either.
Wait, what the fuck are they learning for like the hogs that were in their pickup trucks in fucking February? Like, what do they have to learn from them? How to successfully stop the fucking Canadian government? Because it's like the bare fucking minimum to stop the Canadian government. It's really funny.
We could have been exporting LNG.
Unless you're a fucking indigenous protester protesting a pipeline going through their backyard,
Because politicians like
then you'll get shot.
And liberals have stopped us producing oil and gas in this country.
Gimmick using license Quebec logo back, it's pure gimmick. Oh, 100%, but
well, all candidates here,
what the fuck else are they supposed to do?
Understand that it's important to build pipelines, but the reality is that
Like, how else are they going to win over the Quebec hogs?
Build a new pipeline because to build a new pipeline you need support from Aboriginals.
Like they always change it up regardless of which province they go to. Like all prairie provinces, you essentially can do the same thing, but it's a little bit more tricky when you get to like Ontario, Quebec, or like BC.
Thank you.
Monsieur Poilievre
Mr. Poilievre has raised the issue of the Charbonneau Commission. I'd like to read an extract.
There are not many hogs in Quebec. Small group. I mean, yeah, of course. Like the same thing in Ontario. Like most of the hogs tend to be in like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, but you're still gonna have hogs in like Quebec or Ontario.
Because I know that your staff have not.
And like in Quebec, they tend to be a little bit more concentrated as well.
More seats in Quebec. Our party has never managed to win more than 12 seats in Quebec. However, since 2004,
I do also think that they're trying to regain like some PPC voters as well.
Cultural conservatism in Quebec. We celebrate our history and we take legislative steps to protect our culture and our language. If you become leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, how do you intend to win over?
How many hogs seat in Ontario? I don't remember off the top of my head. It's enough to get Doug Ford elected, though. That's all I know.
In the elections in 2019, 2021 in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada, there was a lot of support for people who put forward a solid economic plan. The Liberals didn't win the election in 2019, not 2021. It was the Conservatives that lost that election. If there's something that I would do, Mr. Fulton, there are 32 bloc members in Quebec. Well, basically, they should be preparing for retirement.
Conservatives currently have 37 in Ontario for the House of Commons.
The bloc and the PQ. I can do that again for you.
Nous pouvons gagner au
Mr.
Québec
Richardson,
de la
we
même
can win in
façon que
Quebec
nous
in the
pouvons
same way
gagner
as we can win elsewhere in the country as well.
Avec respect.
By
en
governing
proposant des idées
with
sur la façon
respect,
d'améliorer la
putting
vie
forward
des
ideas
Canadiens.
Yeah, it's 37.
to improve the lives
Nous disons
of
la même
Canadians.
chose
There
dans
was
les deux
targeting
langues
the PPC
officielles.
vote for sure. I mean, of course.
Across the country.
Why wouldn't he? He just wants he wants to try and regain those votes back, even though it's not going to matter because he's going to lose to the current dumbass premier we have because, you know, tactical voting by the NDP because they don't want to have another fucking conservative government, which is understandable.
At the same time, it's important to create a party, to grow our party with new volunteers, with new members.
Quand j'ai regardé les membres ici de Québec, chaque circonscription est très petite.
Each riding is very, very small. To win an election,
tu as besoin d'un grand parti.
You need a big party behind you. And this is why the leadership race is very important to reach out to new volunteers and members and to create a strong team here in Quebec. Mr. Poilievre. We can win in Quebec in the same way as we win across the rest of the country. It's by giving Quebecers back their purchasing powers. Because of inflation, Quebecers are paying far too much for food and gas.
sous-sol de leurs parents
young people,
parce que le prix
35-year-old living in their parents' basements because they can't afford a
quand le
home.
gouvernement a
I
commencé à
predicted
imprimer
this would
l'argent. Il faut
happen when
renverser
the
10
government started
ces
printing
10
money.
hog
We
seats in
have to
Quebec.
pay down
éliminer les
the
taxes de
deficit. We
carbone
have to
et les autres
reduce.
taxes.
That's honestly less than I thought it was going to be.
Mr. Charest and Mr. Brown's
Donner le
support.
pouvoir
We have to
d'achat
give
aux
back
Québécois et
the
gagner dans
purchasing
les
power to
banlieues du
Quebecers,
Québec.
and we have to
Et c'est
win in
comme
the
ça qu'on va
suburbs
pouvoir gagner.
of Quebec. That's how we'll win in Quebec,
partageant le même
is by
message,
sharing the same message,
grand pouvoir
a
d'achat pour les
message of
Québécois et les
improving
Canadiens.
spending power for Quebecers and Canadians as well. Mr.
Je crois
Backers.
que les enjeux qui sont importants pour les Québécois sont les mêmes qui sont importants pour tous les Canadiens. Les Québécois sont préoccupés par l'état de la démocratie canadienne. Les Québécois sont préoccupés par l'abordabilité. Alors, il y a plusieurs Québécois qui ont peur pour leurs droits, qui sont menacés par les gouvernements légaux. Le Parti conservateur ne devrait pas avoir peur de défendre tous les Canadiens, incluant les Québécois. Nous devons venir au secours pour leur habilité de communiquer avec leurs médecins, leur habilité de mettre de la nourriture sur la table et de ne pas avoir peur de pratiquer leurs croyances. Les votes ne sont pas importants pour moi et je lance un défi à tout le monde de cette scène de dire non au gouvernement légal.
To say no to the legal
Apprendre
government's bill.
le français, c'est une des
Learning
plus
French
belles expériences
is one of
de ma
the
vie.
best
J'aime
experiences of my
beaucoup
life.
la culture et
I
l'histoire
love
francophone. Le Québec,
French
je l'aime
language,
d'amour.
history, and culture.
Je
I
pense
love
Don't
Quebec
lie.
qu'il
deeply.
faut donner à
I
tous
believe
les
Bitch, you don't
Canadiens
give a
de
shit
apprendre
about
their
le
culture and
français. Je
shit.
pense
To
que
learn
le
French, I
système
think
d'éducation
that the
doit
education
mieux-
system
doit mieux enseigner
must
les
do a
deux
better job
langues
of
officielles.
teaching both official
Merci,
languages.
Dr. Lewis. Maintenant, je vais
Thank
ouvrir
you,
le
Dr.
débat
Lewis.
à 6. Monsieur Charest, vous allez
The
pouvoir
six-way
commencer, mais je
debate,
veux juste
Mr. Charest,
renchérir
you
parce
can
que ma question
begin,
portait
but
sur
I'd like to
l'héritage
add something.
culturel,
My question
protéger
was
notre
on
langue, notre
the
culture.
cultural
On sait que le
heritage, on
Québec a mis
protecting
en
language
place
and
la
culture.
loi 21, la
We
loi
know that
96,
Quebec has
qui,
passed Bill
on
21
pense
and Bill
qu'il pourrait s'en aller en
96.
Cour suprême. Selon vous,
There
est-ce
will be
que
challenges
vous êtes confortable
likely
à ce que ces
going to the
décisions-là
Supreme Court.
soient prises par les cours de
Are
justice
you
plutôt
happy
par
with
les élus
having
du
such
peuple?
decisions made by the
C'est-à-dire que
courts and
c'est
not by
des
elected
compétences qui
officials?
relèvent de l'Assemblée nationale du Québec. On s'entend
Well,
là-dessus.
adopting
Et
legislation is
je réitère, que ce soit la loi 21 ou la
something
loi
that
96,
is the
c'est pas moi
prerogative
comme
of
premier
the
ministre
National
du
Assembly,
Canada
be it
qui
Bill
amènerait
21
l'affaire
or
devant
Bill
les tribunaux.
96.
Sauf que si l'affaire va dans
Would
la
be the
Cour suprême
Prime
du
Minister
Canada,
of, it's not up to
évidemment,
the
le
Prime
gouvernement
Minister
du
of
Canada n'est
Canada
pas
to
un
take it to the
observateur dans
courts.
son propre pays. Là. On n'est
But
pas
the
neutre
Prime
sur
Minister
nos
of
propres
Canada
lois.
shouldn't be
Attendons-nous, là.
neutral.
Faut
We're
que le
not
gouvernement se
neutral about
prononce
our
sur
own
ses propres
legislation.
lois. Ça
And the
relève du
government
bon
must
sens.
take a
Mais les
stand on
Québécois
its own
veulent
legislation.
des réponses honnêtes sur ces
Quebecers
sujets-là
want
par des
frank,
gens qui ont une
open
feuille de route
answers
en
on
qui ils peuvent
these
faire
issues.
confiance.
They
L'enjeu
want
qui
to know
les
who they
importe,
can
c'est
trust.
l'économie. C'est un
What
plan
counts
économique,
for them
puis un
is the
gouvernement qui
economy,
est national,
a strong
qui est capable
economy, and a
d'élire des gens
national
partout.
government
Le
that can
problème, c'est
elect
que comment faire
candidates
confiance
across
à
the
quelqu'un qui
country.
leur parle de
So how do you
Bitcoin,
trust
veut
somebody
congédier
who's
le
talking
gouverneur
about
de la Banque du
Bitcoin,
Canada, puis
about
qui, sur la
firing
loi
the governor
21,
of the
n'est pas
Bank of
capable de
Canada,
donner une réponse
but who
honnête ce
cannot
soir?
give an
Il ne
honest
nous a
answer
pas dit que
on
lui
Bill
ne
21.
défendra pas
He
la
did
loi
not
21
say
pour le fédéral devant les tribunaux. Il ne dira pas ce qu'il
that
ne dit
he
pas au
would
Canada anglais non plus.
participate
Puis
in
il
a
n'est pas
challenge
capable
to
de
Bill
donner une
21
réponse parce
before
qu'on
the
est au
courts.
Québec,
He
une
can't
réponse honnête
answer
et franche,
frankly because
femme
we're
du
in
Québec
Quebec, so he's
sur
not giving
l'avortement
a frank
pour dire
answer.
est-ce qu'il est pro-choix ou il est
He's not
pro-vie.
giving
S'il n'est
an
pas
answer
capable de faire
on
ça,
abortion.
oubliez ça.
He's pro-choice, but he's pro-life.
S'il vous plaît.
Well, he wants to try and maybe win over like those liberal voters that are like teetering on the edge.
Je me suis déjà prononcé
I've already said
pro-choix. Oui,
what my position
vous l'avez
is. I am
reconnu dans le
pro-choice,
débat en anglais.
and
Donc,
I said
vous
so
l'avez
clearly, and
vu,
you
M. Charest.
recognized
Vous
it in
l'avez
the English
reconnu que
language
j'avais
debate.
dit
You
ça.
heard me,
Donc,
and you
deuxièmement, je suis contre la loi.
recognize that.
Je suis contre la loi
I
21.
am against Bill
Je
21.
serai toujours contre.
I will always
But
be
the majority of
against it.
Quebecers
Non, j'ai dit
support Bill 21,
I said
or at least some kind of law that separates church and state.
pro-choice. It's the same thing in both languages.
My impression
Does
is
that work for you,
visiting
Mr.
Quebec.
Charest? Does that work
I mean,
for you?
yeah, for the most part, most people generally do tend to
against Bill 21, and I've said so in
tend to have that view.
here. And I've said so tonight. I see that the federal government has announced that it would challenge the legislation. I would not overturn the federal government's decision to challenge the bill. I will always be against that bill. But Mr. Charest, you said that you would help the separatists retire, but it's the separatists who made you retire. You lost your own seat. You lost your own seat. You are the least popular in Quebec than you have ever been.
J'avais dit à M. Brown.
Mr. Brown, 10 seconds.
Excusez-moi. La question donne le droit 96,
The issue is on Bill 96, isn't it?
Allez-y brièvement, parce que j'avais dit à M. Brown.
Monsieur Poilievre, inscrivez-vous dans la longue
Poilievre,
liste des
please
gens qui ont
add your name
annoncé
to the
la
very
fin de ma
long
carrière
list
politique.
of people who have foreseen the end of my political career.
C'est les Québécois qui l'ont
There is a
annoncé,
long
M.
list.
Charest.
Oh,
C'est les Québécois
Quebecers
qui l'ont annoncé.
announced the end of your political
La
career,
réalité
Mr.
est que
Charest.
Pierre Poilievre a dit dans le journal à
Pierre
Ottawa
Poilievre said
qu'il est le
to
chef
a
du parti,
newspaper
le Premier
in
ministre du
Ottawa
Canada, le gouvernement du Canada ne participait
the
pas
government of
au processus de
Canada,
corps contre la loi 21. Donc,
he
peut-être
would
les change
not
son
take
position
part
encore
in
parce
a
que c'est une
challenge,
différente
a
province,
legal
mais
challenge
ça c'est
to Bill
votre
21.
position dans le journal
So,
d'Ottawa.
that's your
Tu changes votre
position
position.
in an
Et je
Ottawa
veux dire
newspaper.
ici ce
You
soir,
are changing your
clairement,
position. And
qu'aucune
here I'm
personne
telling you tonight
ne devait pas perdre
that
son emploi,
nobody
leur emploi à cause de
should
leur
lose
foi,
a job
peu importe qui vous
because
portez
of
un
their
hijab,
faith,
un turban,
because they're
un
wearing a
kippa,
hijab, a turban, a kippa.
C'est important pour notre parti de
It is
toujours
very
protéger la
important
liberté religieuse.
for our
Ça, c'est
party
une valeur
to protect
conservatrice.
freedom and justice. That is a conservative value.
à la question.
I will answer the
J'appuie
question.
l'objectif de
I support
protéger la langue
the goal of
française,
protecting
mais
French.
je crois que la sanction de
But I believe
$5 000 risquait
that the
d'aliéner l'anglophone et
$500
créer
sanction
de raisonnement.
could alienate
Il faut
anglophones
créer
and create
des
resentment.
opportunités pour apprendre
So
la langue.
what's needed are
Merci.
opportunities to
Le
learn
8e thème
the
porte sur la
language.
politique étrangère,
The
Canada
eighth
et Chine.
theme is
Le
foreign
Parti communiste
policy.
chinois a pris
And
le
No, I
contrôle
think-
de
China,
Hong
the
Kong
I-
Chinese
pour tenter
I think Bill
éventuellement d'attaquer
21
la souveraineté de
did not
Taïwan.
pass.
Taïwan
It's
est un partenaire
a shit
stratégique
bill.
et crucial qui
Taiwan's
produit près de 92%
sovereignty, which
des
is a
micropuces
crucial
qui servent à
partner.
notre
It
quotidien.
produces
Comme Premier ministre,
92%
quelle
of
serait
the chips
votre
we use every
attitude
day,
face au
the
gouvernement
computer chips.
chinois et comment
They're produced in
travaillerez-vous
China.
avec
What,
nos
as Prime
alliés
Minister,
pour
would be your
protéger nos
attitude
intérêts
to
dans la mer
China,
de
and
Chine
how would you work to
méridionale?
protect
Monsieur
our
Patrick Brown,
interests
vous pouvez commencer.
in the South China
C'est
Sea?
important de toujours
I mean-
avancer le droit humain.
It is
Ça,
important
c'est-
Are you gonna send
c'est-
lethal aid,
Always
brother?
defend
That's
human
Mais
rights.
le même
That is a
temps,
Canadian
c'est
value.
important
But at the same time,
il y a les
But, like, we fucking stood around when, like, this shit happened,
trade
like,
important to Canada, for example,
at Hong Kong, which was fucking horrible.
Colombia, sending that LNG to China is a way that Canada can help.
But, like, every fucking
China
country
fight
has their own
climate
fucking
change.
demons that we have to, like
It is a
us and the
way
fucking genocide of indigenous peoples.
To improve
And, like,
relations
frankly, it's none of our
China
fucking
that
concern.
became worse under Prime Minister Harper.
Il
Mr.
faut
Charest,
refaire notre politique extérieure
we
de
need
défense.
to
Like, it's, I don't fucking say that, you know,
review our foreign
what we're
policy.
doing is good. Like, that's fucking horrible, of course.
Can see that our U.S. allies were always with us, and now that's no longer happening. China is emerging as a superpower. We can't look at it as anything else. And since we were not invited to Mr. Biden's meeting with 13 Indo-Pacific countries to create a new economic zone, well, that because we are insignificant in the eyes of our allies. We're not there. We're missing in action in Asia. We need to reach economic agreements with ASEAN countries, and we have to contribute to the security of that zone with our allies, which are the U.S., Japan, South Korea.
Moi, je
Mr.
pense qu'on
Poilievre.
peut, en même temps, avancer
I
nos
believe
intérêts
that at the same
économiques
time we can advance our
avec un
economic
grand pays
interests
comme la Chine,
with
tout
a
en
large
défendant
country
nos
like
principes
China
et nos
while
valeurs.
defending our
C'est pour ça
principles
que
and
je
values.
supporte les
And
droits
that is why
de Taïwan,
I support the
ce
rights of
qui est une
Taiwan,
démocratie
which is
en
a
Asie,
democracy
et on
in
devrait
Asia.
garder garder des bonnes
and we
relations
need
avec le
to
Taïwan.
maintain good
On doit
relations
aussi
with Taiwan.
se lever debout pour
We
défendre
also
les
need
droits de
to
l'homme
stand up
en Chine.
for
C'est
human
pour
rights
ça que
in
j'ai
China.
voté pour condamner
And that
le
is why I
traitement des
voted to
Uyghurs
condemn the
et je
treatment
condamne le
of
traitement des
Uyghur
chrétiens
people,
et d'autres
of
minorités en
Christians and
Chine.
of other
On peut le
minorities
faire
in
en même
China.
temps.
Well,
We
yeah,
can
that's
do
the
both
common
at the same
stance to
time.
take, though.
That is what we did
Et c'est exactement
with the
ce que nous
Harper
Because
allons
of
faire
course that's
and that
fucking
is what
horrible.
quand
we
je
will
serai
do
Premier ministre.
when I become
Merci.
Prime Minister.
Monsieur Baber?
Um,
Mr. Baber?
J'ai vécu dans un pays communiste
I have
de
lived in a
l'Union
communist
soviétique.
country, the
Nous ne
Soviet
devons
Union.
jamais avoir peur
We must
d'affronter
never
le
be
mal.
afraid
Yeah,
of
you only lived at the tail end of the
dictature
fucking
chinoise.
Soviet Union. You didn't live
wrong.
underneath
Chine a
fucking
stand
Lenin,
le
dumbass.
bonne santé. Ils mettent les musulmans du Uyghur dans des camps de
was
concentration.
too easy on
ils
China.
Like, if he
China
actually
is
lived
putting
underneath fucking
Uyghur
Lenin,
people
his
in concentration
views of
camps.
the
They
USSR
are
would be
stealing
completely
our
different.
intellectual property. They
Il
are
espionne nos soldats.
threatening to
N'est
turn
pas, Jean?
Taiwan into another Hong
Je n'ai
Kong.
pas peur de la
I am
Chine.
not afraid
Et
of
je vais
China.
avoir une conversation
And I
avec
want
nos alliés.
a
Bitch, you'd be
conversation
pissing your
with our
pants if China
allies. It is
invaded
time
us.
to face up to
You were
China, to
afraid of
stand up to
China. You're afraid of the fucking crusty-ass anarchists that play fucking soccer or some shit.
Cooperation, but rather on confrontation. That is the new reality. We need to establish new policies that take this new reality into account.
La Chine
Thank you, Mr. Aitchison.
utilise sa
Of
puissance
course he's afraid of China.
Its military and
He needs
economic
cheap goods.
power to sow instability, undermine
Well, yeah,
world
but like
security in the
nowadays, like
Indo-Pacific region.
some Chinese goods are actually getting more expensive, so now will most likely be coming from like India or like Indonesia.
The most flagrant way we are seeing in the world today.
Because China has increased
Very well for
their
Mr. Trudeau to ban
socioeconomic
Huawei,
conditions of its
but,
citizens,
what we need to do
as well as
examine all threats to security
treating them sort of better,
created, by the hesitations
at least better than what we fucking have here.
Taiwan aussi comme le
we
pays
need
souverain,
to
indépendant et
recognize
démocratique.
Taiwan as an independent,
J'ouvre
sovereign,
maintenant le
democratic
débat
country.
pour 4 minutes. Monsieur
Thank you.
Brown, vous pouvez
4
commencer.
minutes,
Je pense que c'est
six-way
important
debate. Mr. Brown,
d'ajouter
you begin.
le commencement de la pandémie,
think
il
we
y a la haine
need
contre les communautés
to
chinois-canadiens et c'est
say
important
that,
pour
at
notre
the beginning
parti
of
de
the
toujours
pandemic,
combattre
there was
la haine
already
contre tous les Canadiens. Il y a des exemples de haine contre
problem. There were
cette
hate crimes
communauté
against
à la commencement
Asian
de
Canadians, and this is something we
cette
always
pandémie.
need to
Et
fight.
c'est pourquoi
We saw it at the
j'ai
beginning of
demandé
this
à tous
pandemic.
les candidats,
Well,
quand
this
il y a
is
des
why I
personnes
asked all
qui font les discours de
Canadians
haine comme Pat King, c'est important de dénoncer par
Here's
son nom,
socialism for the
quand
wealthy,
d'autres candidats
rich
hate
individual,
speech.
and for the rest,
question, mais
100%.
sur votre fil de Twitter, Pierre
If you have money, socialism exists. If you don't, you're gonna be living underneath fucking corporatism.
I see condemned in a public court.
It's fucking pathetic.
Excusez-moi. Monsieur
One
Charest,
moment.
vous avez
Mr.
obtenu
Charest.
un contrat avec Huawei.
You-
Vous avez
And like
dit-
the
vous
funny
avez
thing
dit-
is that I honestly don't even think China is fucking communist.
Mais vous avez
So I don't know why they're so fucking afraid. They're just mad that China is doing better than them.
Pourquoi vous avez été payé? Selon
We don't know
Huawei, vous
what
avez
you were
travaillé
paid
sur
for. According to
l'enjeu de
Huawei,
5G.
you worked on the
On sait
5G
maintenant que même les libéraux ont reconnu.
Oh
But
no.
now
C'était
even
une
liberals
menace
have
d'avoir le
recognized
5G.
5G
de
network
Huawei sur notre
constituted a
système.
threat.
I love how they just use fucking old talking points. It's so fucking great.
Monsieur Charest, avec
It
cette
doesn't take
relation que
a
vous avez
secret briefing
et que vous n'avez pas.
to
Maybe
know
they're
that
just jealous. I mean, of
relations
course.
are not
Alors, je veux
disclosed with
savoir,
any
Monsieur
transparency.
Charest,
Why would they
est-ce
not
que
be
vous avez
jealous?
First of all,
divulgué combien
are you
vous
going
étiez
to
payé
disclose
par
how much you were
Huawei?
paid by
Et de
Huawei?
deux,
And
I
secondly,
imagine he's probably paid pretty handsomely
are you
too.
going to disclose
que
the
vous
contract
ou votre frère
that
firme
you
avez
or
avec
your
cette entreprise
company
pour que les
had
Canadiens
with
sachent
Huawei so
tous
that
les détails
Canadians learn
de
all the
votre travail
details
pour
of
cette
the work you did
entreprise-là?
for Huawei?
Oui ou non? Est-ce que
Yes
vous allez
or
le
no?
divulguer?
Are you going to disclose it?
Je comprends que M. Poilievre se
I
plaigne de mes
understand that
supporters. On ne peut pas empêcher un cœur d'ami, M.
Poilievre complains about
Et,
my supporters, but you can't
Et,
prevent
et
people from
là-dessus,
liking
M.
what you say.
Fortin j'ai eu l'occasion de répondre à
I've had the
plusieurs reprises. La
opportunity
première chose
to
que
answer
j'aimerais
this question a
dire,
number of times.
c'est
The
que je
first
n'ai
thing
jamais
I'd like to
travaillé
say
sur
Ouais,
un
is
exact-
that I never worked on
Yeah.
any issue that
J'avais
would
un choix.
I'm honestly not surprised by that, though.
jeopardize the interests of my
Je
country.
suis fier d'avoir pu
And secondly,
contribuer,
I am
et
proud
c'est
to have
confirmé par
contributed
l'épouse
something
Heidi
confirmed
Collet que j'ai contribué
that has been
à
confirmed that
aider
I
à libérer
contributed
les
to
deux Michaels.
helping
Cela étant dit,
releasing
j'ai pris une position
Michael
très ferme
Spavor
sur
and Michael
Huawei
Kovrig.
pour dire
I
que
took a very
j'interdirais
clear
Huawei à
position.
Québec, au Canada, que j'irais plus loin que ça. Je pense que nous devons faire
And I
une
should
révision complète
go even
des
further.
lois de
I
la
think we should
sécurité sur les
completely
télécoms
review
et sur
security legislation
nos
covering
stratégies
telecommunications
aussi
and
sur nos ressources naturelles. Alors ça, c'est la
review our
position que
natural
j'ai
resources
et elle
strategies.
est
That is my
fondée sur une
position, and
expérience
it is
solide
founded
que
on
j'ai vécue
solid
en politique
experience.
extérieure.
My experience
que la
in
question
foreign
était sur la
policy.
protection de nos intérêts en
I
mer
think
de
the
Chine.
question was on protecting our
Pierre
interests in
Poliev, Pierre
China.
Poliev est le seul candidat. Pierre Poliev est le seul
Pierre
candidat.
Poilievre.
Oui, c'est mon temps. Pierre
This
Poliev,
is my time.
Pierre Poliev
Pierre
est le seul
Poilievre
candidat,
is the
le
only
seul candidat qui a
Canadian
le soutien d'un exécutif de
to
Huawei.
have the support of a
Pierre
Huawei
Poliev, tu es le
executive.
seul candidat qui a le soutien
You're the
d'un
only Canadian
exécutif
to
de
have the
Huawei.
support of
Pierre
Huawei's
Poliev, tu as le
executive.
soutien d'un exécutif
They're trying to make him look like a spy, and it's fucking great.
de Huawei. Il peut pas répondre.
He can't
This is fucking
respond. Is he
awesome.
going to answer? He can't
C'est
answer.
longtemps. Il évitait les questions comme Justin Trudeau.
He avoided the question just like Justin Trudeau
Vous aviez
does.
la main levée?
Il évitait les questions.
He avoided the question.
Oh no, I already knew that this was gonna happen. Like
Huawei executives.
Like fucking
also
2 weeks
campaign.
ago, or whenever the fuck the English debate was.
On passe au prochain. On passe
Chat and I were
Move to the
making
next,
fun of them, saying like some of them were spies.
de la deuxième
last,
section,
subject
environnement
of,
et
the second
exportation
section.
d'énergie.
Environment
L'inflation
and
et la guerre en
energy
Ukraine
exports.
ont sensibilisé les
Inflation and
Canadiens
the
au
war in
rôle
Ukraine have
important
made
que nos ressources
Canadians aware of the
naturelles
very important
pouvaient
role that our
jouer au
natural
pays et à
resources can
l'étranger.
play in this
Nous n'avons
country
pas encore
and abroad.
d'infrastructure pour
We don't
exporter
yet have the
davantage de ressources
infrastructure
sur notre
needed to
côte
export
est,
more
principalement parce que le
resources on
Québec
the eastern
ne
coast,
favorise
on the
pas
east
ce genre de
coast,
projet.
because
Le
Quebec
code
is not
GNL
in
Québec
favor
est un
of
excellent
such projects.
exemple.
LNG
En tant
Quebec
que
is a
Premier
very good
ministre,
example
comment
of this.
comptez-vous
As
faire
Prime
pour
Minister, what
développer
will you
et
do to
exporter
develop and
nos ressources
export our
énergétiques
energy
tout en
resources
travaillant avec le
while
gouvernement du
working
Québec
with the
pour faire
Quebec
valoir le
government
rôle économique
to
et environnemental
highlight and
des ressources
enhance the economic
canadiennes?
and
Monsieur
environmental
Charest, à vous
role
de commencer.
that Canadian
Merci.
resources
C'est
can
un
play.
enjeu qui est
Thank
un
you.
enjeu
That
pivot pour
is
l'avenir
a
économique.
crucial and pivotal
Développer nos
issue
ressources
for
naturelles et
the
la
country's
capacité de réaliser des grands projets.
for the
Et
country's
seul un
future, the
gouvernement
ability to develop
national est capable de faire
our
ça.
Yeah, I'm glad
resources.
that Quebec doesn't support the gas or oil project either.
National government can do that. I am in
It's-
support of developing
Je
the
prendrai une approche qui
oil,
nous
It
gas
is
and pipeline
something good that comes out of Quebec,
that
so.
allow us to develop it
de zéro
while
carbone en 2050 parce qu'il est
complying
possible de
with
le
the
faire
zero
et de faire une
carbon,
transition énergétique intelligente
neutral
comme le fait en
objective
passant
in,
l'Europe. Et la façon d'y arriver, c'est
2025,
comment?
in,
Ben, il faut faire la
25
capture
years,
de
rather.
carbone, il faut développer l'hydrogène bleu et
We
vert,
need to
les
talk
biogaz,
about
il faut
carbon
développer
capture,
les
green
petits
hydrogen,
réacteurs nucléaires.
biogas,
Il faut une approche
small
globale
nuclear
qui va nous
reactors.
Wait,
permettre
What we
carbon
need is an
capture?
overall approach that will take us to the results we
Why
need
the
to
fuck
have.
do you want carbon capture? That's like dog shit.
I believe that Canada can develop its natural resources while protecting the environment.
Notre gaz naturel
Our natural
liquéfié
gas
peut être vendu à
could be
d'autres
sold
pays et
to other
permettre
countries, our liquefied
de
natural
réduire
gas,
les émissions du
and this
carbone.
would help us reduce
Notre
carbon
secteur
emissions.
énergétique est
Our
Wait, what?
energy sector
How?
is the
Et
How would that help
du
reduce
monde.
carbon emissions?
the world.
Le Canada doit pouvoir
Canada must
retourner
be able
travailler
to
dans le secteur énergétique. Nous pourrions
restore its energy sector. Canadians must be able to go back to work in the energy sector.
Here with
and we
Gil
need
of Gas.
to improve
Oil lobby, talking heads again. I mean, yeah, that's essentially what they are.
that revenue in
And the fucking
cleaner
liberals
technology.
are,
Merci.
Mr. Aitchison?
L'énergie canadienne
are like the fucking like
Canadian energy.
bank lobbies.
mondiaux.
Is the
C'est bon
answer
pour
to many
notre
world
dog
problems.
shit.
It's good for our
environnement et
economy,
pour
it's
faire
good for
avancer
the
notre
environment, and it
politique
is good
étrangère.
for the advancement of our
Tout le
foreign
monde
policy.
ici
Everyone here on the stage
Mais nous
is
avons besoin d'un
pro-pipeline.
véritable plan pour construire
I love how they're crying about a pipeline that doesn't even fucking exist. It's just like Republicans in the
We need to
States.
establish a framework that makes it possible to build more. We need clear guidelines and a predictable approval process for pipelines and natural resources projects. I believe that Pierre Poilievre would be a good minister of natural resources.
Monsieur Poilievre?
Mr. Poilievre. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. That's very kind of you.
Fournir notre propre énergie. Ça fait
But yes,
rien
we can
pour
certainly
l'environnement
produce our own
d'importer
energy.
le
There is
pétrole d'outre-mer. Mais nous importons
no way that importing
Great to
it is
frame it
helping
was
our
gonna
environment.
win what
You
the
see,
election
importing
bank
100
lobby.
million
True.
barrels a day from abroad,
de pétrole
even though
ici au Canada
we
et on
have
est
the third
capable
largest
de le
reserves in the
produire.
world.
I
here in
honestly
Canada,
think that the
and we
Liberals will
can
probably
produce
win again.
our resources
Because all these candidates are dog shit, and like
in the world.
Et pour
I
permettre
you literally had like the last fucking leader like saying the Nazi parts out loud.
So that we could replace
So
all
I
the oil
honestly
we
don't
were
think they're gonna
importing.
win
What we
again
need to
anytime
do
soon. Maybe
is
like provincially they will, but
oil coming
federally I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Le secteur d'énergie du Canada est plus sceptique
Canada's
et plus
energy
net
sector
que d'autres pays. C'est
is
important
cleaner than that of other
de
countries.
construire
It
les
is
nouveaux
important
pipelines.
that
Le
we
monde,
build new pipelines.
le monde
The
a
world
besoin d'autre
needs
énergie.
our
Par exemple,
energy. For
comme
example,
j'ai dit, la Chine
as I
maintenant,
said,
il est indépendant sur le charbon
China
et avec notre GNL, nous peut
is using
aider,
a lot of coal,
nous
and
pouvons
with
aider
our
la Chine
LNG,
pour combattre
we could
la Chine
use
climatique.
we
À
could
la
help
même temps,
China
les
fight
Allemands maintenant
climate
est
change.
dépendant
At the
sur
same
la
time,
Russie pour le
Germany
pétrole.
is
Canada
dependent
peut
on
encore
Russia for
aider
its oil.
l'Allemagne
Canada
avec
can
le
help
pétrole
Germany
plus sceptique
Okay,
with,
et
so
plus net.
Germany is only dependent on oil is because you know they discontinued a fuck ton of their nuclear reactors. That's the only reason why they're more dependent on oil. It was done mostly like a bunch of fucking conspiracy theories as well.
Je vais libérer le potentiel du Canada et en faire la superpuissance de l'énergie que nous devons être. Le Québec produit l'électricité pour un coût bas. Allons-y, rendre le Québec la capitale de l'électricité d'Amérique du Nord. Le Québec a la bénédiction d'avoir beaucoup de gaz naturel. Allons-y, libérer le potentiel d'énergie du Québec. Merci.
Merci. Je vais ouvrir le débat. Malheureusement, à cause du temps qu'on a perdu avec les applaudissements, on n'aura seulement que 2 minutes si on veut rentrer dans le temps. Monsieur Charest, je vous invite à commencer.
Le dernier pipeline qui s'est construit au Québec.
That's a scary frame.
Okay, right. What about if they go longer? Shall I come back after Esther?
Is this a fucking leftist stream? Jesus.
To have a better understanding of the leader style of the candidates.
Quebec is already powerhouse in clean energy, hydropower. They need to vote, I guess.
They only have 30 seconds.
No, I honestly don't think so.
This is the question.
I think rest of Canada does need to develop more in green energy, though.
Even as Prime Minister, would always talk to backbenchers.
I think a more, I think a more like green energy and nuclear energy hybrid system for power would probably be the best.
Also with ordinary people in Canada, the working class has been completely forgotten over the past.
Because like most people don't even want the fucking pipelines, so.
Attacks against their freedoms, attacks against their wages, increases in tax and inflation. I want to remain in touch with the working class. I want to be visible, I want to be available, and take part in events with them, because these are the people I want to work with. Mr. Aitchison.
except he'd probably fucking step all over the proletariat.
We must have the courage of our convictions, and we must defend our values and our principles as well. People have had enough of the status quo. This is why I want to focus on providing real conservative solutions to make life more affordable and to show Canadian leadership internationally. And sometimes that means taking difficult decisions. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Oui, c'est important d'avoir des bonnes relations avec les députés conservateurs, mais en même temps, c'est important d'agrandir notre parti dans le banlieue canadien. Nous avons besoin d'un parti conservateur plus grand. C'est trop petit maintenant. Il y a quelques candidats qui veulent renvoyer l'autre conservateur, comme Ed Fast, comme Jean Charest. Maintenant, c'est important de rassembler tous les conservateurs dans ce pays ensemble pour combattre Justin Trudeau.
Dr. Lewis. Thank you, Dr. Lewis.
Je vais
lose again to Trudeau.
I want to unite the conservative movement, fiscal conservatives, traditional conservatives, and everyone by respecting the opinions of all of us. We must also respect the members of the party. I will respect people who are pro-life and people who are pro-choice as
La
well.
culture woke et la cancel culture font mal à notre...
If you ask her what fucking woke culture is, there's no shot she'd know what the fuck she's talking about. It doesn't even fucking exist, and it's fucking awesome that they love using that language.
Nous ne pouvons pas défendre la démocratie au Canada sans défendre la démocratie au sein du Parti conservateur. Je vais unir le parti en respectant la diversité d'opinion. Nous devons respecter le caucus. Les députés travaillent pour leurs électeurs, pas pour le chef du parti. Nous devons faire ce qu'il faut pour les Canadiens. C'est ce qui nous différencie du Parti libéral. Merci.
We expect from our party.
Pour terminer, Monsieur Charest.
Mr. Charest.
Je ne sais pas si les gens qui nous écoutent
I don't know if
réalisent, mais
people
vous venez de
watching
poser
us
une
tonight
question
realize, but you
importante.
just asked a very, very important question about the future of the party.
Capacité du chef.
The ability of the leader to work with the new caucus.
Moi, j'ai été chef du
I
Parti
was
progressiste
leader
conservateur
of the
du Canada au niveau fédéral pendant
Progressive
plusieurs années. J'ai été
Conservatives
chef d'un parti au Québec pendant
federally
15
for
ans.
several years, and I was leader of the Liberal
Ça a
Party,
été une
a
des plus belles
coalition for
expériences de
15
ma vie.
years. It was one of the greatest
J'ai adoré
experiences of my
travailler avec
life.
ces
I love
Et je vais le
working with
faire
those
avec mon
people, and
nouveau
I'll do it with the new
Parce que c'est
caucus
des
as
hommes et
well,
des femmes
because
d'exception
these are
qui
exceptional
méritent le
men and
respect
women
de leur chef.
who deserve the respect of the leader.
Merci.
Thank you.
Maintenant, on passe à la déclaration de clôture.
Closing statements from the candidates. Candidates have carte blanche. Each of them have 2 minutes to talk directly to members and to all Canadians watching us tonight.
Obviously later from 93 to 97, yeah. I mean, like, the renewables like should be all across the country.
We can only do that if we don't have a divisive.
Like, there's plenty of
we must inspire
space in
I would restore unity
the prairies to do like a bunch of wind and solar.
We'll regain the trust of Canadians so that we can form government
And I'm
again.
not too sure what BC will do though. I don't know, maybe nuclear.
Who founded Canada. They succeeded because of the party, and Canadians were united behind them. With a strong team, a united team focused on what unites us, we can think about a better future. We wanted to form a government that makes life more affordable. If you want that,
Bitch, no you don't. Every single time you guys have gotten into power, everything has gone up.
At votescott.ca if you want a Canada that sees its role restored internationally. Join me on votescott.ca. If you want an approach, a responsible environmental approach, join me at votescott.ca.
En cette période d'incertitude, les Canadiens comptent sur les conservateurs pour restaurer la dignité et le respect dans le leaders et le système politique. Si vous voulez un vrai leadership, joignez-vous à moi
join me
sur
at votescott.ca. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you. Mr. Poilievre,
Fuck just the environment.
Je pense que j'ai manqué le site web.
I missed the website address. Could you repeat it for me?
Yeah.
Sérieusement,
Seriously speaking,
croient avoir perdu le contrôle.
people think that they've lost control over their own lives.
Je rencontre les mères monoparentales
I meet
qui mangent
single mothers who are missing
pouvoir
meals
payer de
so that
nourriture
they can
de leur enfant.
feed their kids.
J'ai rencontré une soudeur à
I
St.
met
John's
a welder in St.
qui
John's
ne peut pas remplacer
who
ses
can't
bottes de
afford
travail
to
parce qu'il n'a
replace
pas
his
assez
work
d'argent.
boots because he doesn't have enough money to do that.
Je rencontre constamment
met
des jeunes
time and
de
time
35 ans
again
qui
young
vivent dans le
people
sous-sol de
who
leurs
are
parents
living in their
et
parents'
qui ne peuvent
basements
même pas rêver
who
de
can't
commencer
even dream
leur vie en
of
famille
starting
nouvelle.
their own family.
Les gens ont perdu le contrôle
People
de leurs
have lost
décisions
control
personnelles
over their own
avec
decisions,
les
their own
vaccins
lives.
obligatoires qui enlèvent
Vaccine
la liberté
passports,
et
for
les
example,
emplois
which have taken
des gens
away
qui sont bons et
people's freedoms
patriotiques,
and which
qui
have
ont
taken
toujours
away
fait leur
the
travail
jobs from people
avec
who are
fierté et
patriotic and have
compétence.
always done their jobs competently.
Mark Twain a dit
Mark
il y a
Twain
deux
said,
des journées les plus importantes
there
dans
are
votre
two
vie. La
very
journée où vous
important
êtes
days in
né
your life, the day
et
you're
la
born
journée où
and
vous
the day
constatez pourquoi vous
where
êtes
you
né.
see
Le
why you
pourquoi
were born.
est la question la plus importante.
The why
Je
is
me
the most
présente pour
important
Premier
question.
ministre
I'm running for
pour redonner le
Prime Minister of
contrôle
Canada
de leur
to
vie aux
give
Canadiens en
Service.
rendant le Canada
35 years
le
old,
plus
living in his
libre.
parents'
give
basement.
Canadians
I mean,
back control over their
yeah,
own
that's the
lives.
sad thing is that
It's for freedom
it's
that immigrants come to Canada. It's for
it makes more
freedom
financial
that
sense
we can
to
live in
stay
a
living
better
at
future.
home
We have
with your
to
parents
restore the
than it
freedom
does to
people
like
need
even
to
go
live
fucking
in the
rent.
future. To buy what they need, we must give back the
Like
people.
for context, like my uncle lived with my grandparents for a fucking long time because of how crazy the housing market is, and he was the only reason why he moved out is because he was really fucking lucky that he managed to find a place for relatively cheap. And like most fucking young people want to be independent anyways, but they can't because of how ridiculous the cost of the living is.
Right to free speech by fighting against Justin Trudeau's censorship. Our country must be free and must be self-sufficient in energy. We must increase production of our own resources here in Canada. We have to scrap red tape. We have to build new homes for young families. I want a Canada which is free, where ordinary Canadians are masters in their own homes.
Okay.
Politicians are servants.
Okay, so build the fucking houses and, you know, fucking make it universal then, bitch. Do it. So then I'm worried he's going to connect on that issue. I mean, maybe. Time will tell.
S'il vous plaît, Dr. Lewis.
Dr. Lewis.
Pour 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Le Canada,
Canada
c'est le plus beau pays
is
du
the
monde.
best country in the
En tant que
world.
chef,
No, we are not.
toujours me battre.
We are not the best fucking country in the world. I disagree with that entirely. We have so many fucking things wrong. And like the only like subpar thing we have is our healthcare. Outside of that, everything else is just dog shit.
We'll always fight to protect
Make Canada great again, brother.
to reduce taxes, to balance the budget, and to develop our natural resources, and to protect the environment without the carbon tax.
En mon temps, je vais aussi
As
protéger
leader, I
nos
will protect
libertés
our freedoms,
fondamentales,
our fundamental freedoms.
défendre notre
I
démocratie,
will defend our
protéger
democracy.
les
I
droits
will protect
parentaux et
parental rights.
trouver de vraies
And I will
solutions
come up
pour
with
la
real solutions for
réconciliation.
reconciliation.
Les Canadiens ont besoin d'espoir et d'unité.
I mean, of course they are. It's what their backers want, as well as they think that's actually going to create jobs, which it creates like maybe temporary jobs for like, I don't know, like,
a career politician.
I don't know, 3 months, and then like you have one fucking guy running it. I mean, technically you have, but like, it's one fucking job, so it ultimately doesn't even matter.
And and I hope that you will believe in it with me. We have to defend the freedom of speech, the freedom of regions, and the freedom of conscience and religion. This is the Canada that I want to build. I hope that you will join me in building that better Canada. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Monsieur Charest.
Mr. Charest, over to you.
Merci.
Thank you very much.
Nous nous adressons ce soir
Well, this evening,
une salle de membres
I'm
du
speaking
Parti
to a room
conservateur
of
du Canada. Il y a des
members of
auditeurs
the Conservative Party of
qui nous
Canada.
écoutent
There are
partout
people
au
listening
pays
to us
également.
across the country tonight as well.
Et j'aimerais attirer votre
And I'd
attention
like
sur
to draw your
une chose qui
attention
doit vous
to
arriver
one
assez
thing
fréquemment,
which
si
must
les
happen to you
amis
very,
ou
very
membres de votre
often.
famille
Members
savent
of your
complètement.
family, when they find
Ils
out you're
observent la
members
course au
of the
leadership
Conservative
actuelle,
Party,
puis ils
they're
posent la question,
watching the
s'intéressent aux
leadership
choix que
race,
nous,
and they're
les
interested
conservateurs,
in
allons
the
faire.
choices
Parce
that
qu'en
the
passant,
Conservative Party
par
will
respect
make.
envers vous,
Yeah, they're all fucking awful.
To choose the leader before you can think
C'est là où
about
ça commence.
really
Par
forming
respect envers
government.
vous.
That's out of
Cela
respect
étant
for
dit,
you. Having
les
said
gens
that,
s'inquiètent.
however, people are worried.
La question qu'ils se
I
posent,
honestly
question
wish that they
they're asking
invited
themselves
Derek
is the serious
Sloan because
question
he
as
would have
to
made things like
au Parti
10,000
conservateur
times
de
better.
Party
de
of
la politique
Canada.
à l'américaine.
Really
But they're
good
too big of pussies to actually invite him to like the fucking debate, even though he would never win.
approach,
On fait des slogans.
an approach
Où
based
toutes
on
les
slogans
réponses sont des
where
esquives. Où allons-nous
all answers
faire
are
la politique au
non-answers, or
Canada
will we
pour les
do
Canadiens?
politics in
Et c'est
Canada
le
for
choix que je vous
Canadians,
offre,
and that's
moi.
the choice
Pas
I'm
d'être
offering
un
you.
pseudo-américain.
I'm not a pseudo-American
Ce n'est pas
here.
ce que nous voulons
This
comme
is
pays.
not what we want
Nous
for
voulons
our
un
country.
chef
We want a
capable
leader
d'unir le
which
parti,
is
mais qui
able
a un
to
jugement
unite the
aussi,
party,
qui part pas sur
which
des
also has
histoires de
judgment,
signal à des théories de conspiration,
which isn't
qui
beholden
part sur des
to
théories
conspiracy
sur la Banque
theories,
du Canada ou le
who
Bitcoin.
doesn't speak
Honnêtement,
out against the
on n'en
governor
est
of
pas
the
là au
Bank of
Canada.
Canada
Nous
who
voulons
advocates
un
for
chef
Bitcoin.
capable d'unir le
This
parti,
isn't what we
mais
need for
surtout
Canada.
capable
We need
d'unir
a leader
le
to
pays.
unite the country,
Parce
more
que les
importantly,
Canadiens
to
veulent un
unite
pays
the
qui
country,
fonctionne,
because
qui est
Canadians
capable
want
Pseudo-American.
works for them, that can develop
You know,
this
it's
economy.
purposely
Parce qu'on veut
privacy.
Why are we doing that? Because we
Oh,
want
for
to,
sure.
encore que celui que nos parents nous ont laissé.
I
On a
mean, like,
gagné la loterie, nous, de la
prosperous
citoyenneté au
country.
Canada.
all these guys are like fucking Democrats, though.
Laisser à nos enfants un
From
pays
our
qui est
parents,
prospère.
we
they're-
should be doing the same for
They
our
essentially
kids.
are like pseudo-American.
Creating a prosperous country, which is really up to our dreams and aspirations, what we want for the next generation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Babbers.
Monsieur Baber, pour
Mr.
2 minutes,
Babbers, 2 minutes.
s'il vous plaît.
Okay, they're actually like cheering for the guy that I actually enjoyed the most in the fucking debates. Might be Republican. I don't think so. I think he'd be more of like a libertarian Democrat.
Please keep your applause for later.
But out of all the candidates that we have, he would probably be the closest to Republican.
Canada with my family when I was 15 without any
Mais j'ai
money.
reçu toute la bénédiction
But
de
I
notre pays.
received a lot of
If he was
benefits.
elected, he probably would most likely be like one of the rotating villains in the
What you have to do to succeed in
Democratic
is
Senate.
to work very, very
Je
hard
travaillais dans le
and be
secteur
kind.
privé pendant
Because he'd
12
like
ans.
stonewall
J'ai
everything.
rejoint et développé une petite entreprise.
I worked
Et j'ai
in
été élu
private
par la
business
communauté
for
qui m'a donné le
2
revenu
years,
en
and
tant
I-
que
But then again, like the only thing you actually have to do to be a Democrat in the States is be like, hey, I'm not a Republican, you should vote for me.
Je me suis opposé à mon
To
gouvernement
oppose,
parce que nous
the
n'avons
government,
pas pris en compte les conséquences du confinement
because
de
we
notre
haven't
réponse
thought
à la COVID.
about
Je continuais à me
the
battre pour
impact
nos enfants,
of
pour nos
lockdown
choix,
during
pour notre
COVID. I
démocratie.
continue to fight for
Défendre
free choice for
les
our
gens est
democracy.
quelque chose que
Defending
je fais
people is
toute
something
ma
that I
carrière.
have done
Je ne
throughout
suis
Maybe
my
be
career.
like the Joe Manchin. Oh, 100% he would be.
I don't even like
Mais j'aime mon
politics.
pays,
He absolutely would 100% would be Joe
I
Manchin.
love Canadians as
Je ne
well.
veux pas rester à regarder
I don't
l'érosion
want to
de la
watch
Or like
on the
a Maggie
sidelines.
Hassan.
de
I
l'opportunité
don't want to
du
see
Canada.
Canadian democracy
Alors, je veux
vanish.
arrêter la censure,
I
la
want to stop
ségrégation et
censorship,
d'assurer des
segregation
médias
as well,
libres
and
et
to want to make
indépendants.
sure that media is
J'étais
independent and free.
seul ici à opposer le
I'm
confinement
the only one
à
here
un
to
coût
have
cher pour ma
opposed a
carrière
lockdown,
et ma famille.
and I paid a dear
Je me
price
suis
for
opposé
that.
au passeport
I oppose
j'ai présenté un projet de loi contre le mandat parce que je veux toujours défendre les Canadiens.
Bitch, that was already rolled back in some provinces.
Et vous pouvez s'attendre à ceci de moi. Je n'ai pas peur de politique ni la culture d'annulation. Je vais toujours dire ce que je crois et faire ce que je crois est juste. Et vous allez toujours savoir ma position. Je vous demandais de me classer en prime. Je serai très honoré de diriger notre parti et notre pays. Merci.
Pendant 2 élections consécutives, les conservateurs ont remporté le plus de votes.
The Conservatives have won the popular vote.
This guy is definitely the most forgettable of all of them.
How to win elections. I want to change that. I'm Mayor Patrick Brown. I'm running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. I know how to build a
Jesus
big tent party. That's what we need to defeat Justin Trudeau.
Here comes Mr. Religious Freedom. I honestly don't give a shit, like, if people want to, like, practice their religion and everything. Frankly, I don't care what people believe in. But when it gets to, like, extremism, then I think it's a fucking problem. Like, I don't give a shit how resolved your faith in fucking God is, but if you're, like, advocating for, like, I don't know, fucking segregation of, like, black people or some shit like that, then yeah, no, you're a fucking piece of shit, and I don't care. Like, most religious movements and shit have in the past been more historic, but ever since, like, the Reagan era, things have gotten more and more, like, aggressive, especially in, like, Christian circles. Yeah, but freedom from religion is important too. I mean, of course. I'm not saying that it's not. But, like, most, in that regard, most, it's only, like, the fucking extremists that generally tend to do that. And trust me, I know, I live in a very fucking religious part of the country.
Focused on conservative values. I didn't avoid them. I froze taxes. I fought against crime in our community. This is the type of leadership that I'll bring to Ottawa. To win, Conservatives need a fighter, someone who will defend us against attacks from the liberal media. It's time for the Conservatives to win government. You need a leader that knows how to attract new supporters and new volunteers to our movement. A Conservative Party with a leader that can show millions of Canadians who don't currently vote Conservative that their values are our values. This is the way I won in the region of Greater Toronto. This is the same way we will win in Quebec. And this is the way I will govern Canada as a Conservative.
This party is probably thinks all atheists are communists and dangerous. I mean, they probably secretly think, like, all gay or trans people are dangerous too. They won't say it, like, out loud.
Thank you to candidates this evening for having debated with so much enthusiasm and vigor. I'd like to thank the organizing committee as well, and the people here tonight, despite the fact that some of you took too many liberties. The last day to buy your membership card is the 3rd of June, and the result of the vote will be known on the 10th of September. To get to know our candidates better, they have all created videos which are posted on the party website. The country is facing several challenges. Each of the candidates this evening has expressed the way they will deal with those issues. If you care about the future of Canada, join the Conservative Party of Canada and vote to make a difference.
How about no when I vote for Sing again?
It's now time to take action to build a movement to replace Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.
So the last date to buy a membership. Ontarian's election date. Coincidence? No, absolutely not. There's no shot that it wasn't planned like that. Okay, well, that's probably gonna be it for me. I'm gonna head off and get ready for work and everything for tomorrow. So, hope everyone had fun today, and sucks that fucking people had to die in Texas. It's not fun. Good chat, yeah, anytime. Every Wednesdays. Anyways, I'm off. See you all later.